On this episode, we discuss Artemis Fowl.
The movie that dares to raise the question, why is this movie named after an entirely nondescript, personality-less cipher who spends the entire movie inside his own house?
Hey everyone, welcome to the Flophouse. I'm Dan McCoy.
Hey Dan, it's me, Stuart Wellington.
Oh, hi.
Guys, what a coincidence. I'm Elliot Kalin and I'm here. All three hosts of the Flophouse. We're here, together, on the Flophouse. But we're not alone, are we, Dan?
No, we're not. We are joined by our guest, Scott Weinberg, whom I did not write down how he wanted to be introduced because I thought you were doing it, Elliot.
He said it twice, Dan. I'll say it. Film critic, filmmaker, podcaster, cat lover, horror nerd, Scott Weinberg, and I will add in a personal endorsement of his podcast, Science versus Fiction, in which they talk about the real-life science or fake life science and quality of your favorite science fiction films. Scott Weinberg, thank you so much for joining us.
I am thrilled to be here, long-time listener, first-time caller, although I did get a mention several years ago when Stuart recommended a film I produced. I had downloaded like 14 episodes and listened to them on an airplane, and one random episode at the end when Stuart recommended Found Footage 3D, I got chills. I was so elated and thrilled, and that is why Stuart is my favorite of the three floppers.
Oh, we finally get the big reveal because because I'm the best at promoting.
That's your hidden strength.
It was and you guys also took a recommendation from me several years ago. I can't remember what it was, but I recommended an 80s film and you guys did it. So I've always been a huge fan, and to be on an episode on such a wonderfully rotten movie makes me happy, because boy, this movie is a stink pile.
Let's not jump ahead to final judgments.
Sorry, cut that.
No, but it is. It's totally.
No, it's
it's a stink pile, but whatever.
This isn't the first time that we're going to say it lives up to its name, Fowl.
Oh, shit.
Oh, did I do that?
Well, why is he called Fowl? I thought that was like a play on, it was like Valiant. It was an animated chicken or something.
Well, we will return to the stinkiness of this pile in a moment. But we just wanted to take a brief moment here at the top of the show to mention that this is the start of Max Fun Drive 2020. It's been quite sensibly delayed a couple of times due to world events, but since...
Well, what's going on, Dan?
Yeah, there's something happening.
Ooh, boy. I'll explain after the show.
Okay.
Thanks for derailing my train of thought immediately at the beginning. It was delayed, but since, unfortunately, the world does not seem to be getting better at any particular pace, here, we bring you Max Fun Drive. Let's listen to me. Maximum Fun is artist-owned, audience-supported. That means that when you become a member of Maximum Fun, you are a direct contributor to the shows that are made, including our shows. You have some ownership of the show, although don't start telling us what to do. You're not our real dad. But
good way to get open their heartstrings and then cut them. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Love it. Love the hostility. Unnecessary, uncalled for, undeniable. Delicious.
But it's important. I mean, like,
I would say Dan isn't going to be their private dancer. Wait, I'm waiting for them to stop laughing, Dan. That was a really great joke.
Hold on.
Okay. No, but the money that you donate to Maximum Fun, especially because you get to choose the shows you listen to, goes directly to the show with some overhead to allow the network to actually continue. And especially in this year where we have added off-week shows, off-week content, it is nice to have that money coming in that, really helps us do new things like that. So you can choose a monthly amount that's comfortable for you. Most people give $5 or $10 a month. Some upgrade to $20, $35, $100 if they have the means. I know that a lot of people do not right now, but it is about what works for you. But we'll get back to that later in the show.
And Dan, where do they go if they want to join and become either a member or upgrade their already existing membership?
Yes.
Would it be MaximumFun.org/join?
It will be. It would be that. It is that, in fact. To use that tense, it is MaximumFun.org/join. But let's get to what we actually do here, which is watch a bad movie and then talk about it. In this case, the movie is Artemis Fowl, which was meant to be a big blockbuster film released in theaters, but then the pandemic hit, and now it's on Disney+.
And it's based on a series of novels, right? And it was your familiarity with those novels that made you request we do this movie, right, Scott?
There's it's so weird to see when a trend ends, and boy, when it ends, it hits I thought like the end of the Divergent series just kind of fell off the train, and then you have these these lingerers. They're like, well, we still have a young adult movie still percolating for 19 years, and they've invested so much money in it. You have to release it in some way. This thing doesn't even look finished. I mean, I'm just going to be Joe Film Critic here. This thing looks like it looks like one of 12 different cuts, and they just said, "All right, we'll release this one. Who cares?"
Yeah. I mean, it's like the sort of thing when I'm into YA fiction, so of course I hear about these Scorch trials. I want to find out what's the whole deal there. I'm into maze running.
Now, Artemis Fowl is a YA series. It's based on a series about a criminal mastermind kid. You heard me right. He's a kid, but he's not a hero. He's a villain. That's right.
Yep.
He's the bad boy of YA fantasy fiction. He's Artemis Fowl.
And I want to say, that appears to be, in the limited research I've done, kind of the interesting thing about those books is that he is introduced as this criminal, and then sort of over time you sort of understand different things about, who might be right, who might be wrong in this story.
Who might be crazy.
Yeah, but in
Who
this
might just be a lunatic you're looking for?
But in this movie, they do not identify him as, some sort of child criminal at the beginning. He just seems like kind of a dick at the beginning, and he never gets all that much less dickish.
They also keep calling him a child genius, and he never really does anything that particularly genius.
He claims to be smart a lot.
He does a lot.
Yeah,
There's a lot of hype.
Claims to be intelligent.
There's a lot of hype of the character going on that is not backed up by what. And then at the end he goes, "I'm a criminal mastermind," and I'm like, how? What did you do? What crime? You've done nothing. This is. I'm just gonna say and Stuart, you're doing the summary on this one, so I won't.
I am.
But this is one of those movies where the whole time
Stu.
I was like, why is this movie called Artemis Fowl? Why? I don't understand why he's the character you named it after, since he's kind of barely in the movie. And I'll just warn.
It should be called Baby Hagrid.
It should be called Baby Hagrid, as played by Josh Gad.
Now that we bring up
Hagrid.
Hagrid, I think it's an important time for us to do our weekly mention that J.K. Rowling is trash, as are all transphobes. They are trash. Okay, let's go back to the show.
Do we really say that every week?
Yeah, I mean, anytime we invoke her name.
Yeah.
I mean, did we?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about her creation, Hagrid.
I guess that's the same thing.
Wow,
That's the, I mean,
Elliot, you seem weirdly defensive right now.
Hey, guys, I'm just saying, no, I'm not even going to joke about that. No.
Please don't.
Yeah, trans rights forever. Come on. Okay, but
I just wanted to say when I watched this film for the second time, and I know you guys, I've heard many episodes, aka all of them, and I know that you guys, when you see a bad film, you'll tear it to shreds. I'm watching this movie for the second time, and I'm sitting there thinking, who the hell is going to break down the plot of this one? Because it's impossible. Stuart, please do it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I will do everything in my power. So, the movie opens seaside. We're at Fowl Manor, Ireland. That's right. It's spelled like the bird, not like the state of being or the judgment.
The ball.
Yep.
Yeah.
The play.
You got some more?
There's no foul intentions. That's cruel intentions.
I mean, you could have foul intentions.
teen remake of Les Liaisons Dangereuses.
Okay, it's not foul things, it's wild things. It's not the incredibly true story of the Texas cheerleader fouling mom. It was Texas cheerleader murdering mom. Let's see. It's not hold on. It's not the foul pit, it's the money pit. It's not the cook, the thief, his wife, and her fowl.
Okay.
I think we're out of phrases, yeah.
Although Fowl Manor does sound like a caveman death metal band or a slam band. Okay, so
Yeah, it sounds
outside of
pretty
Fowl
cool.
Manor, the news has gathered, and they're flipping out. There's apparently been a series of high-profile robberies, and a mysterious person named Artemis Fowl is the suspect. And they snatch up a Josh Gad, who, as we have described earlier, looks like a short, dirtier Hagrid. And they take him off to a special water prison, like the one you might see in Face Off, or The Avengers, or Mortal Engines, or anything else, guys? Can you think of anything else? Water prisons?
Convergence.
Yep. Convergence. Yep.
Who
Waterworld's
are the...
Prison, that's the second Waterworld movie that never got made. Waterworld Prison.
Yeah. One of the many things I was unclear about, and maybe you guys can help me, is
Probably not.
Who was interrogating Josh Gad? Like, what was his organization?
Now let's address Josh Gad isn't called Josh Gad in this movie. He is called his character's named Mulch Diggums.
Because he's of the lineage of the Diggums frog
Yep.
from the cereal
I mean,
commercials.
later in the movie, we will see how apt that name is.
It's that lazy writing of he later turns out that one of his skills is digging, so his name has to be what? Mulch Shovelhead. Like why? Why?
Because everyone's named after their job. My family Kales, we have for generations. Stuart's family digs wells. Dan's family is very coy. And Scott Stewart, of course, is, I guess that would be what, a White Mountain? Or is that Weisberg?
That would be Weisberg.
Weinberg is actually, it's a vineyard in German.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So my family's a bunch of drunks.
And and you're a vintner. Yeah, of course. So so Mulch Diggums, I think he's being interrogated by like Interpol or the British Secret Intelligence, MI6. Who knows? It doesn't matter.
Whoever
Dan,
it is,
it's the least of the questions.
Dan nailed a key problem is this movie doesn't have any point of view. You don't know who's talking to who. It's somebody explaining 6 random adventures and then the movie ends.
I mean,
That's the thing. Like, I texted Elliot during it. I'm like, never has a movie tried so hard to explain itself to me while I still don't know what's happening. Because all Josh Gad does is like paper over what the plot is supposed to be, and I still don't know.
This is a movie, not to get ahead too far, where the bad guy, whose identity we never learn, releases someone from jail, and they are instantly the most powerful person in the entire community, and we never find out who they work for or why they were in jail or what, or I don't know.
Nope.
Anyway, Stuart, but we are not even there yet. Mulch Diggums is being interrogated by someone who's not even in the same room with him. We don't even get to see the interrogator.
Yeah, he's just like staring into a box where, and he talks about a mysterious artifact called the Aculus, not Oculus. That would be an evil, mirror? Is that the movie?
Yeah.
Is that the evil mirror movie?
Yeah.
And he decides...
And not Porculus. That would be some kind of superpowered pig. Maybe like a pig.
Porculus 2 the next day, which is a terrible sequel to a terrible movie.
All right, Porculus Revenge. All right. I had to do it.
So wait, is Porculus the name of the heroes of the movie, or is it the villain? Does Porculus actually show up?
That's a good question. In the first one, they're searching for Porculus, and he finally shows up at the very end. The second one, they think he's going to be a hero, but he's actually a bad guy. And then in the third one, he turns out to be the good guy, ultimately.
Now, we've been just burning...
Also played by Josh.
Yeah.
Yeah,
now
also, of course. And in the fourth one, he fights... What's that? It's that Emerson, Lake and Palmer album. What is it? Tarkus or something like that?
Carnival?
Okay.
No, the one after Carnival. It's like...
I don't know. That's the one I know.
I'm gonna have to look it up. Hold on. It's the one where it's some kind of like... it's some kind of like armadillo tank.
Yeah,
let me look it up.
Yeah, we should probably pause the podcast and let Elliot look something up.
No. Keep going.
Okay, so we've been blasting
Tarkus.
through
Yeah,
this.
it's called Tarkus. Anyway,
Stuart,
Tarkus is...
I coined a term for you that you might like. It's called Gadsposition.
Yeah, so we're getting some Gad's position. We're flying through this plot. Time for Stuart to pump the brakes a little bit and point out that this movie's directed by Kenneth Branagh. You might know him from Woody Allen's Celebrity.
That's probably where you know him from.
So Josh Gad decides to tell. Wait, I fucked it up again, guys. Mulch Diggums decides to tell us a magical story about a surprising little boy, and the whole time he's doing it, in addition to looking like Shorter, Dirtier Hagrid, he is doing it with a serious Batman voice. Okay, and that's not the only Batman voice we get in this movie. So get excited. So we learn a little bit about
there's a lot
Ireland.
of gruffness. There's a lot of gruff voises in this for no reason.
Half of the Gad's position in this movie feels like it was shot at the in the 12th in a series of reshoots.
At the Gad's minute.
The Gad's position feels like it was shot a week before the movie came out. That's how lazy it feels. Like, we're just glue this all together. Get him back in here and glue these scenes together with exposition and narration. It's
I wanted to say something about how tremendously lazy the opening is, because it really sounds like someone fed a bunch of fantasy movies into an AI, and they're like, okay, opening exposition, opening monologue. But the thing that I really wanted to highlight was he says something like, "This is a great story, and it starts like all great stories do, with magic." And then, like, they show him surfing, and then he's, like, at school, and you're like, okay, well, it's just magic you're talking about,
I'd
guys.
even go back further and say that The Great Gatsby has no magic in it.
Exactly.
War and Peace does not start with magic. All great stories start with magic? I would take issue with that.
I don't know. Merchant of Venice doesn't have any magic in it.
There's no magic in that. There's
great,
no magic in The Bluest Eye. Excuse me, sir. Sir, can I see your manager, sir? I don't remember there being any magic in the novel The Sympathizer. Excuse me, sir.
As Dan said, now that we're in story mode, he tells us about a magical land called Ireland, where we see this little asshole Artemis surfing around, and it looks way less cool than I think it's intended. He's like a super smart overachiever, but he's also terrible, and I kind of want to punch him.
Well, he's a real misanthrope, as relayed to us by the school therapist who, and I'll just mention this, the therapist's office includes a glass wall between the therapist's office and the waiting room, so everyone in the waiting room can see who's getting therapy at that moment, which is incredibly unethical. Like, I would turn around and walk away. That is not okay.
Well, everything about his therapy is... Yeah, everything else he does in his therapy session is totally above board, though. He's a great therapist.
Oh yeah, he just reminds Artemis Fowl of his dead mom and absent father, and then brags about an old chair that he has, so that Artemis can show off his genius by telling him the chair is not as old as he thinks it is. That's right, Artemis Fowl's amazing ability to appraise antique chairs.
Imagine young Sheldon, but mean.
If young Sheldon, without the people skills, like
Oh wow, yeah. Oh man, what a team up that would be.
Do filmmakers not realize that when you make a kid totally unlikable, that lasts for the whole movie? You can't come back from that.
Well, it's also not about him learning any kind of lesson. And, like, I was like, who's this little shit? Like, when I saw it, because, this came on the heels, the books came on the heels of Harry Potter, and they were rightly or wrongly sort of, like, looked on as this, like, attempt to jump on that train. But
interesting. I didn't know train was what you were going to say. Okay.
Yeah, but, I mean, Harry Potter...
I thought you would say bandwagon.
Harry Potter and, again, J.K. Rowling is trash. Harry Potter, like, the point of that...
Thank you.
The beginning is, like, he is this kid who's been through so much hardship, and you're on his side immediately. Whereas this kid is rich and is a dick to everyone.
Well, I think
comparing himself to Einstein favorably.
Yeah.
It's like, do you respect anybody? He goes, Einstein. But I think, so here's where I think they get it wrong. So the difference is, there are two different types of fantasies. Harry Potter is a fantasy about you're a lonely kid and it turns out you're a powerful wizard and everybody loves you and you got, I don't know, you have sex with a dragon.
You're rich and you get to become a magic cop at the end.
Yeah, and with Artemis Fowl, it's supposed to be the fantasy of, like, I'm the smartest, most badass kid, and I'm not a goody-goody like Harry Potter. I do what I want. It basically, like, it's like the thing that the fantasy people had when they voted for Donald Trump is the fantasy they're supposed to be having with Artemis Fowl of, like, isn't it fun to pretend to be a bad guy for a little bit?
Yeah.
But instead they took that character and tried to shove him into a story about a lonely kid who needs to find friends, and it was like, why he's pushed away everybody, and he's a jerk. So it's,
and as a result, they made a movie as bad as Donald Trump. No, I mean,
come on,
obviously
hold
nothing
on.
is as bad as Donald Trump. He's the
Oh,
worst
I
thing in the
wouldn't go
world
that far,
right
sir.
now.
A lot of lefty politics in this episode. Anyway, so we also learned that his dad, Colin Farrell, taught him all about Irish folklore. Now, do they show us him teaching about Irish folklore, or is this just more Mulch Diggum's talk?
Don't they just like walk around and look at stuff? And the thing is that previously,
He shows him a lot of old stumps.
now, yeah,
But guys, was Colin Farrell? Is he an attentive dad, or is he like absentee and never there?
well, I mean, when he's there, he's great. You know, that's the thing. You just look forward to the times when he's around.
Okay.
Yeah.
But he has
So
to,
now-
he's always leaving.
So when you see Colin Farrell is cast as Artemis Sr., you're probably hoping for a killing of a sacred deer situation. No such luck.
I was hoping it would be a real lobster situation, and their maid would just come in and rub herself on his crotch to force him to make a choice to fall in love.
I would have been
That doesn't
happy with a
happen in
little,
this.
just a dash of In Bruges would have pleased me.
Oh, very nice.
We get
didn't even
none
get
of these things.
We didn't even get any
Although-
Tigerland, guys. We didn't even get any Alexander.
There's no SWAT. Well, kind of. There's a little SWAT.
There's a
Like
lot
the
of SWAT.
SWAT,
There's
this
a-
kid, I
there's a-
tell you.
But this is a very dour movie. So at this point, we're probably like 10 minutes in, and I was like, "Ooh, magic makes everything depressing."
Yep.
Wow,
But
magic
we're
is
about to
sad.
be dropped knee deep in a digital explosion of fairy creatures and fairy tale lore. Let's enjoy it.
So let's hit the gas now. He teaches. Artemis' dad teaches Artemis' son all about Irish magic. And then he leaves on a long, mysterious trip. We're introduced to Artemis's only friend, who is Dom Butler, who is his butler. But you're not supposed to call him a butler. But he's like like a big bodyguard type.
Yeah.
Artemis Sr. has disappeared while on this trip, and he finds out from the news that his dad is a suspected master thief. Which I mean, most kids find out all their information on the news, right?
Yeah. Kids
Smart
love the
kids,
news.
too.
They love to leave it on. Oh no, wait, that's old people. That's old people
Well-
who leave the news on their TV
dude,
all day.
you forgot
blaring.
You don't
weird-
want kids learning about.
You forgot a weird piece of whimsy back there, Stuart. I didn't get how
I'm going to forget a lot of
he
pieces.
says, don't call him Butler, even though he is the butler and his name is Butler. But don't call him Butler.
Yeah,
That's good writing.
Yeah, he doesn't like it.
multiple levels.
And we eventually will meet. Well, I guess that hasn't happened yet. We'll meet the butler's niece, who's also brought there, and then she disappears for broad swaths of the movie, even though they're
Yes.
all in the same house together.
Elliot, you know what's great about doing your own podcast is you can kind of jump the fuck around if you want. So, in fact, we'll just get to it. We're introduced to who you think is going to be the second lead of the movie, Juliet Butler, who is another 12-year-old who is hyper functioning. I think she is introduced like fighting like kendo or something in the woods, and she is introduced, and then, as you said, disappears, does almost nothing except run away from a troll later.
I think that where she works might be the only clever bit that I enjoyed, and it might be the only reason the books ever got greenlit. She works for an outfit called Lep Recon. So
Oh, well, that's
that's a cute little pun there. If you're like trying to incorporate like old school folklore into modern technology, you Lep Recon. But that's not enough to build a movie and 8 books around.
Yeah.
Well, we'll
speaking
see.
Speaking of her disappearing for wide swaths, now toward the end of the movie, where I wanted to look anywhere but the screen, so I can only take Audrey's word for this. She says that this character who disappears was not even there during her relative uncle. Is it uncle's death scene?
during the scene when we'll get to when Butler
He
almost
briefly
dies.
dies. He comes back, but
So you weren't watching this part. So you had tied Audrey to the mast so she could watch the movie.
yes,
and you wouldn't have to.
She had like those Clockwork Orange,
The canary
eye
in the
things
coal mine.
on.
Tell me what happened.
Yeah, and I was just like, I was like in the other room. I was like, you just shout it to me. You just tell me.
Dan, I'm constantly so impressed by your dedication to the podcast. that rather than pausing the film, you decided not to break up the experience, and you said, I'm going to watch it like I was in the theater and just let it keep rolling while I leave the room to... Was it cutting up a mango this time? That was the excuse last time.
Believe me, if I saw this in the theater, I would have abandoned the entire enterprise.
That's, you know what? See, that's an interesting point that you just nailed. And this was supposed to be a wide theatrical release. And if this final product had come out in theaters, people would have been even rougher on it. I mean, it's atrocious. And
Yeah, I mean, I feel like if this movie had been released in theaters, there would have been a shortage of theater mangoes because so many people would have been leaving the theater to go buy theater mangoes.
Dan, you'll be happy to know. You'll be happy to know. I don't remember if we ever talked about this on the podcast, did we? About how you missed what was going on. Oh no, you did, it was in that mini. You missed what was going on because you were busy cutting a mango. And this is now, whenever I'm complaining about you, Dan, and I'm like, oh, Dan wasn't around for this thing. Sammy's like, oh, did he have to cut another mango?
Oh, that's amazing.
So that's his go-to Dan slam.
Every time you complain about me around the house in Sammy's earshot. Thank you, Elliot.
Well, it's only because Sammy always wants to hear about you. I told you about when we were going through our wedding photos, and he was like, "Where are the Dan pictures? Show me more pictures of Dan."
Oh, that's that. No, I mean, you know that Sammy's my favorite child in the world.
Oh, that's sweet. I want to tell Gabriel.
Hey. Well, I've had less time to get to know Gabriel. I did want to say one thing that is brought up by this. This was on the mini, this mango story, and this is one of the great things you're missing if you don't listen to the minis. I know that the minis have less of a download, and I think there's been some really good ones lately. So
that was in the Get Even mini, right?
Yes.
So, Stuart. This is when, does Artemis Jr. find out what happened to Artemis Sr.?
That's what we would call a leading question, Elliot. So, so Artemis is obviously...
overruled.
Hearsay. He saw it in a movie. Overruled.
Artemis Jr. is tearing out his hair. He's rending his garments. There is no way that this fake news bullshit would call his father a thief. And around now, he receives a phone call from Opal Cowboy, an evil fairy who is living in a mountain fortress and has his father captured in some kind of crystal trap. I think that's all correct.
This is why I was glad Stuart got to do the breakdown this episode.
And makes some kind of ransom demand. You got to bring me the Aculus
in 3 days.
Yada. In 3 days. You got 3 days.
When I was complaining about this movie while watching it, I was saying like, this movie is just like people staying in one place. Like you got Artemis at the fucking mansion grounds all the time, and then you like cut back to like, oh, it's Colin Farrell hanging around. Like,
no, it really plays like. I mean, I imagine like if I went over to Elliot's house and he were to show me a photo album of his trip to, let's say, Mexico, and instead of a movie, he just shows me 12 still photos, and for each photo he talks for 15 minutes. That's what this movie feels like.
Yeah.
That's kind of... Now, here's what I'll say, that maybe they were so prescient and they were like, you know what? When this movie comes out, people aren't going to be able to leave their homes. So we'll have Artemis stay at his house. We'll have Opal always stay at her house. I think her, because it's a woman doing the voice. But we don't know. We never learn anything about Opal. And we'll have Judi Dench for most of the movie, because Judi Dench goes up, be in her underground fairy world. And we just won't have them interact very much. And you know what? People will really be able to relate to these characters who go on a wild, magical, mystical, marvelous adventure without leaving their very own home for days.
And Judi Dench is mostly looking at screens and interacting with people on screens or things on screens. Which,
There's one moment where you can see her thinking in her mind about how stupid what she's saying is while she's delivering lines. But she's a professional.
She comes out of this the most unscathed, much like she is one of the best things in Cats.
If anybody can walk out of this movie unscathed, it's Judi Dench. She made it out of Riddick. She can make it out of this. But she looks bored. I don't care if the huge stars are in a bad movie, but give them something to do. She looks bored.
But I was watching this with my wife. She goes, "How did they get Judi Dench?" And I'm like, "She's British. She'll do anything."
Right? Laurence Olivier did, in his later years, did some really questionable films as well. Everybody needs to get paid, but if you're gonna have Judi Dench on your set, rewrite something, give her something like juicy or funny or scary. She's just perfunctory. It's not her fault, but boy, it's not.
I mean, she's literally riding around on a Segway for a lot of the movie, so she's not even walking.
Yeah. So we find out that so Artemis learns the hard way that there's truth to all of these stories about fairy stuff, and that his father has a secret office, and there's all kinds of secret bullshit in there, and he uses an old, bedtime poem or something to find his father's secret hidden journal, and he starts reading that shit, and then...
Now, I'll mention that a lot of the magical, mystical bullshit is just bottles with glowing liquids in them. And we don't know what it is. It just looks like cloudy milk. He just is a hoarder who collects.
And we're just
cloudy
waiting
milk,
for him to open the drawer that will take us to the next narration sequence. That's it.
Yep. Which is, of course, we are introduced to Haven City, that is the underground fairy city, which is like a mix of Coruscant and with a big dash of Shadowrun thrown in there. And we're introduced, there's flying buses all over the place, and it's a little bit it's a little crappy, it's a little beat up, a little cyberpunky.
It's kind of a mix of a Star Wars prequel and The Fifth Element and Men in Black and a Sharper Image store. That's what it feels like.
It's kind of a beat up, dingy B-roll of Hellboy 2.
Yes,
I would say that in a better movie, I would find this more interesting. I mean, you could say that about basically anything, but these fantasy creatures with science fiction technology is a thing that I'm sure is very common in other media, but not so much in movies. You don't usually see these high fantasy creatures with this kind of like they say Star Wars prequel stuff around them. But because this movie is so bad and confusing otherwise, I just found it sort of more confusing.
Well, it raises two questions for me that the movie never answers, which is one, if they have super magic, why are they shooting lasers at each other and wearing space helmets? They have magic. They don't need all this junk. And two, they make a point a lot of times in the movie of saying, we can't let anyone see us. We can't let humanity know that we're down here. We can't let anyone see any fairies up above. And it's you seem like you have the ability to wipe out humanity. You can control time, and you have lasers and magic. I don't understand why you need to hide. At best case scenario, we should be trading partners. Worst case scenario, you're our conquerors. I don't understand.
Maybe they could just not like us.
Yes. Children in a backyard do better world building than this movie does. There's no world building. Here's an establishing shot and some narration, but there's no actual world building.
Uh-huh.
I mean, it could be just someone pretending not to answer the doorbell when someone they don't like comes to the door. Maybe the fairies are just ugh, these humans.
Humans again. I mean, we do learn that in the world of Haven City, it doesn't matter if you're a prisoner being taken to the worst prison in the world, or you're a police officer who's re-entering the city, you have to go through the same gates. So you wait online with each other.
Yeah, so this is when we're introduced to, I guess, our second lead, who is a cop named Holly Short, who is the daughter of a famous trader who originally stole the Aculus. But I guess she's trying to clear her father's name or something. Who cares? So this is where we're reintroduced to Mulch. Mulch is getting sentenced to the worst prison for stealing stuff, I think.
Breaking and tunneling. Or tunneling and entering? Something like that.
Yep, tunneling and entering. They make a lot of jokes about how he is tall for a dwarf. I guess he's a dwarf. And I don't know, I think he's getting 400 years, which seems excessive, but I don't know. I don't know. The criminal justice system's terrible.
Also, they live a long time. At one point, Judi Dench says to Holly, you're 84 years old. You're still young. You got your whole life ahead of you. So they live for centuries.
Yeah.
Well, and Judi Dench is 800.
Yeah.
It raises a really interesting question, guys. In the world where where a creature lives to, say, 900, what effect does that have on criminal justice and jurisprudence? You wouldn't sentence someone to 5 years for embezzlement if they lived to 900.
I guess that's true. Yeah, I guess sentences would be longer in as we've already established, a terrible system.
Well, but would they though? I mean, is a sentence as it stands now, other than a life sentence, which obviously is in relation to one's life, although life rarely means life. Even a life sentence.
Dan, you got so philosophical there. Uh-huh. Wow.
No, but non-life sentences, are those determined as what percentage they are of someone's expected lifespan? I don't think that's...
Yeah, I think that's what they do, Dan. Yeah, that's how they do it.
Well, no, I'm arguing against that as a notion.
They do a physical, and they're like, okay.
They're like, let's find out how long you're going to live. Let's count your teeth.
So Elliot got really excited. He already mentioned Judi Dench. Judi Dench plays Commander Root. She is also doing a Batman voice. That's right. We got two Batmans. And Judi Dench has decided to mentor this young fairy cop, Holly Short. I think in her heart she believes that Holly's father was wrongfully accused, but we'll find out later.
And she says to Holly that all of Fairyland is at risk unless they find the Aculus. This is never explained.
It also bears mentioning at this point that along with the tremendous amount of negative criticism for Artemis Fowl, there was also minor controversy in that Holly was described as having brown skin in the book, and this is another whitewashing
I would just like
situation.
in response to that, I
Continue.
would just like to also interject that I believe that J.K. Rowling is a piece of shit.
Oh, thank you.
Okay.
I mean, never a wrong time to say that. So,
Well, three of you have already said it. I wanted to get mine in. That's all. I'm sorry.
Now, there's on Wikipedia, if this is true or something, they talk about that Saoirse Ronan was attached to this role at one point, which seems like it would have been maybe the biggest waste of acting talent I can imagine.
oh, that's funny.
I find it, and I know we're not, but I always feel kind of bad for the actors in a way because you know that the script they got was at least marginally better than this, and guaranteed actors that were kind of knocking for not doing much had more to do in the movie. But it feels like literally 90 minutes got cut from
There's
this
the
film.
original David Mamet draft.
Yeah.
So this is around where Elliot had mentioned this earlier, that some person who we have no idea who he is gets released out of prison by Opal Cowboy, saying something about, like, I need you to spy for me or something.
Yeah.
Whatever. We'll get to him later.
His name is Briar Cudgeon.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Thought you were making that up.
This is the only worst names that I can. Well, and you know what? All fantasy names are kind of silly, but what's the show? Is it an Amazon show where it's a murder mystery and they're fantasy creatures? It's called like Hollyhock Lane or something like that.
Carnival Row.
Hemlock.
Carnival Row. Yeah, where I was reading the review of it and it was like Detective Inspector Gulliver Mickelboss, and I'm like, all right, forget about it. Has to team up with Carnival performer Ivy Galindagall, and I was like, never mind, forget it. I can't even read the review.
See, I start reading that and I'm like, oh, I like where this is going. Sounds like an adventure.
It just by this late point, it's just when you see all of the bullet points that are endemic or part of the young adult novel and the young adult adaptation. By this point, you start to get irritated at the cynicism of it. It's not just, hey, Harry Potter was a big hit. We have some good stories, too. By this point, it's just so mercenary how they're, like, aping the formula.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So around now, meanwhile, like, Artemis and Dom are, like, getting into trouble, and, like, they hang out with Julia a little bit. Doesn't matter. I think they start staking out the biggest tree on their property. I don't know what's going on.
So that's a tree where they've been led to believe by his dad's journals that fairies come to sometimes.
Oh, okay.
This is where the movie completely threw me like a roller coaster I wasn't strapped into. I watched it twice, and this is where I was just like, I don't know. I feel like I'm watching a Peter Gabriel video. I don't know what I'm watching plot-wise.
Yeah.
Wait, is there a plot to the Peter Gabriel videos? Like, does Sledgehammer have a plot?
No, they're just avant-garde, hopefully interesting kind of visual coolness. And that's another thing. Except for the establishing shots that they think are all like, here's our stately castle or our cool warren of whole. It's an ugly movie. Kenneth Branagh has made some wonderfully good-looking movies. This movie is ugly. I don't get why it looks like so brown and grungy.
Yeah.
Well, I think they're trying to, to a certain amount of it, is they're stuck in the kind of classic, I think, Gaelic fantasy color palette of greens and browns, and they add to that the color that is synonymous with dimensional portals and ultra technology of the movies, glowy blue. And so there's just a lot of like glowy blue and darkly lit underground scenes and greens and browns. And it's a movie where you're like, hey, you know what color I like? Red. You know what's another fun color? Yellow. I'd love to see these colors. Pink is a color. Can I see some of those, please?
Yeah, let's drench this in synthwave. Okay, so
I mean, I would
around
love
now-
that. I mean, how is that not better? How is that
No,
not
I
an
mean,
improvement?
that would have been way better.
Let's liquid sky this thing up. Come on, guys.
So we're introduced to down in Haven City. We're introduced to another cool character. That's right, Foley the Centaur, tech genius.
Best character.
They do that clever thing a script does where they make a point of saying, "Don't ask to ride him." So you're like, "Oh fuck, somebody's gonna ask to ride this guy at the end of the movie." Like that's the only way they're gonna stop it. But
You got to assume that that's rule number one: is you would never ask a centaur if you could ride them.
so you're saying that the movie made the subtext text, and you're unhappy about it.
Oh, it just seems so obvious to me.
Also, I do like that they took the Irish name Foley and they spell it Foal, like a foal, like a baby horse. Because he's half horse, Foley.
Wow.
Shit,
Elliot,
movie gets points.
I like this movie more now that you just got. I mean,
I'm just
a little
saying,
bit.
the movie's having a little fun. Or the creator of Artemis Fowl, if there's
Yeah.
a character from the book, is having some fun.
So
I still
Holly-
go back to. I still insist that Lep Recon is slightly clever.
So Holly Short is given a mission because all the other fairy cops are dealing with some bullshit. So of course she has to ride some lava to the surface. She goes to a wedding where a troll has showed up, and she gets in a fight with a troll. Wait, let me
And
finish.
that troll
Elliot.
wasn't even invited.
Now,
this
she
is all
goes to the
very
wedding
simple.
to catch the troll. Just to make it clear that there's a, even though in my notes I wrote, sent to the surface in a lava rock to find ... someone ? Who escaped ? It turns out there's a troll on the loose. She goes to an Italian wedding where the troll is there. I assume because the troll heard about their amazing soup. Because
Yep.
is there a better soup than Italian wedding soup? Maybe, but I haven't tasted
Yeah.
it.
So she shows up to capture this troll. Then they freeze everything and just take the troll away. Like, why do they send her to?
Yeah.
And then they Men in Black all the humans.
That was the
Yeah.
part that was the part I found the most insulting was when they sent fairies to put flashbulbs in people's eyes to make them forget. And I was like, do you think I didn't see Men in Black? Like, there were 3 of them. Like, you can't just pretend this is your idea.
Yeah,
they-
make it like fairy dust or something. Come on, you can't
Yeah.
do the bulb thing.
But I also like the casualness of them, the making them forget, because while they're doing this, like, the time is frozen, and it basically looks like, in an X-Men movie when Quicksilver's going around, even though I don't think she was doing it at, like, super speed or anything.
Or like
but-
when Sonic is running around in that roadhouse in the hit film Sonic the Hedgehog.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes. Thank you.
So
Elliot.
that's going on, and they make him forget, but then all the chaos, the aftermath of the chaos is still there, the destruction when they, like, come out of their time warp thing.
Yep.
And so everyone's like, oh, what? And it's just like, I appreciate the laziness of the fairies in that instance.
That they made them forget everything but didn't explain why this wedding suddenly was a disaster.
They really
Exactly.
half-assed
They
the
didn't do any
cleanup,
cleaning.
is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does ask the question, Stuart. Yeah, why did they bother to send Holly if they could just stop time and send in a team of agents to get this
Bing.
troll?
Yeah, you would think that would be the whole point. But of course, immediately afterwards, Holly decides to go rogue on the surface because she's trying to clear her father's name. Because, of course, in all situations, the fish rots from the head. Judi Dench broke protocol to freeze time so quickly. So, of course, her subordinates don't really care about the rules either. So I think this is a situation where we're just going to have to deal with the entire system. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, dismantle it, defund Leprechaun.
Oh
yeah,
man,
sure.
this
So-
segment in Artemis Fowl just ripped straight from the headlines.
Yep.
This is also this is the part where Cudgeon goes up to Judi Dench and is like, "Hey, I'm gonna have your job and your ass if you don't get in line and do what I say." And I was like, wasn't he in jail earlier today? Like, I
Yeah.
don't understand. How did he get this job so quickly, where he's in charge of everything? Very strange.
Yeah, it is pretty strange. But you know what else is strange? That Artie and Dom have set a trap for Holly outside of this tree. She flies to this tree for some reason, and then they shoot her with a tranquilizer dart. And then the fairies find out about it because I guess they're tracking her, and they're like, okay, well, we gotta rescue our friend. However, Artemis has already thrown Holly in jail in his house because he can't leave his house because then that would defeat the whole movie.
That was this is Artemis captures Holly and Judi Dench says to Cudgeon at this point, "Get the 4-leaf clover out of here." My favorite kind of joke, guys. A joke in a kids movie that necessitates knowledge of a swear word.
Smurf
Love it.
happens.
Now,
Smurf
Stuart,
happens indeed.
It's cringy for the obvious reason, which is a 5-year-old's not going to get that joke, and it's even cringier because anybody who would get that joke would just groan. It's because it's not funny.
Yeah. It's a real groaner. It does remind me, of the Smurf tagline. Smurf happens, and of course, get smurfed up your butt, which I thought was especially inappropriate.
Smurf, my Smurf. No, I don't have
Smurfs
children,
too.
but I always did feel like, wait, hey, Mom, what does that mean? And you're like, oh, all right, it means suck my dick. That's what it means. No, I thank you, the producers of Sonic the Hedgehog for forcing me to explain
Like, wow, those
to my
Smurfs are
5-year-old
going
kid.
raw.
Now, did you mention? I can't remember that. They told Holly that fairies can't be seen, remain inconspicuous, and so she just flies with her fairy wings low enough that people can see from the streets of Italy.
Yep. Well, people don't look up.
Oh, that's
By
true.
the way, I just want to say that this is around the point where my thin grasp of the plot went to no grasp of the plot, and
Oh, wow, you lasted
Stuart,
longer than I did.
explained a big portion of it just now, and yet again, it's as if the ideas could not find purchase on my brain. They slid right off as Stuart
Now,
said them.
Dan,
so.
what's going on is that so Artemis Sr. has been kidnapped, and Artemis Fowl Jr. has to get the Oculus. In order to get the Oculus, he has a plan that involves kidnapping a fairy, even though the
Right.
fairies do not have the Oculus because it was stolen from them a long time ago.
And in fact, they want it.
And in fact, they want to get it back. And so the fairies then decide to invade Artemis Fowl's house because yes.
Because that, yes.
They want to get
want-
their comrade back.
They want to get Holly back. And the way they do this inconspicuously is by almost killing a fisherman and then attacking Ireland.
We've invoked the Oculus several times. I just also want to say that it is the most MacGuffin-y MacGuffin in that I still don't know what it was supposed to do.
It's like a big magic metal acorn that does magic.
Come on,
Yeah,
dude.
yeah.
I mean, how much plot do you need?
And all of Haven City relies on it because yes.
Yeah, it's the same thing. It's like, in Pulp Fiction, I want to see what's in the briefcase.
Yeah, in Battle Angel Alita, why don't they tell us more about this Clone War she was in?
Shut up. You keep making reference to a thing that hasn't been released yet, Elliot.
Well, we better release that episode, Dan, because I want people to know how much you love backstory. Extra backstory, please.
The Oculus is cool, but who made it?
But what was Boba Fett like as a little boy?
I literally asked for one sentence of clarification about a plot point, and now this is Flophouse canon.
Part of canon.
Okay.
But tell me, so what else happened when Scully was a little girl? That's when you're watching the X-Files.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so Holly is in jail in Artemis's house. She tries to use her powers of mesmerism, but Artemis and Juliet are wearing sunglasses, and that blocks her abilities. Holly is not having this.
What kind of magic can be thwarted by sunglasses?
That's
The
a
magic
good
of the
question.
sun's rays.
Radiation.
Yeah, it usually goes the opposite direction,
Yeah.
like in They Live.
Yeah, usually magic sunglasses let you do special things, but these
Yeah,
are regular
exactly.
sunglasses that stop things. Now, the other question is, did Artemis build this cage, or did his dad already have a fairy cage in his house?
Well, also,
Or is it a fairy day cage?
let us. There was a moment too where Artemis is like, fairies are real, and I'm like, wait, he didn't believe that before. It seems like that's all his dad talked about ever.
And why did he force the butler to stand outside for days in camo gear, watching or in one of those, what are they called? Ghoulies? What do you wear when you're out hunting?
It's a ghillie suit. A
Ghillies, thank you, ghillies. And a ghoulies
No,
are when
like-
you're hiding in a
They'll
toilet.
get you in the end.
Yeah, they'll get you in the end.
And you need to get someone in the end, yeah. Why he is standing there with a sniper rifle for days, and he's like, "Oh yeah, well I'm glad my hunch paid off that a fairy would show up."
Yeah, that was my big complaint about the latest Call of Duty, is that my sniper character couldn't wear a ghoulie suit.
Which is like little suspenders, right? Like little overalls.
Yeah.
Call of Ghoulie. I like it.
Call of Ghoulie.
Yeah, that puts the duty into Call of Duty. Okay, so...
Because it's a toilet, I get it.
Stuart, as you're trying and doing a really good job of explaining all these randomly inserted
Thank you.
plot points, you're to a credit to your, as a service to your listeners, you're omitting all the different times that Josh Gad interrupts what's happening. He interrupts with any time an isolated sequence gets slightly interesting. Josh Gad is like, and then Bob fell over. And they're like, wait, why is Josh Gad explaining, just showing me a scene?
Yeah. Okay, so if it's Josh Gad in this movie, so of course it's not Josh Gad, it's Mulch Diggums, and he does it in his cool voice, and he's like, humans would be frightened of fairies. Most humans are afraid of gluten. And I'm like, wow, this is a really crazy world that we're in, because most people make fun of people who don't like gluten.
Take that, gluten!
And there's a lot of well, here's when the kid does what he does best. He comes up with a plan. And my voice is not really a Mulch Diggums voice. The accent is all off. But
I hesitate to shatter Stu's remaining sanity by putting another halt to the plot summary.
Oh, you mean like the X-Force character Shatter Stu?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's pretty cool. I have hollow bones and only 3 fingers.
And double swords.
I feel like this is maybe the place to bring this up. I have no idea about the production history of this movie. Maybe others do.
Well, so here's...
But it really... Hold on. But I just want to... the reason I bring it up is...
I have the information you're looking for.
Okay, but I want to first say the reason I bring it up is like it definitely feels like Josh Gad's narration is there to paper over stuff that got cut or changes that were made at some point. Like it feels like a movie that has had surgery done on it, but I don't know if that's true.
I think I don't know for sure. I know that the movie was in development for a very long time. It was in development since before the book was published. It was purchased. The rights were purchased while it was in galleys, and it took years and years, and at different points, lots of different people were attached. And so I imagine the final script is either they threw it out and in a short amount of time had to rewrite a wholly new one, or it's like a mishmash of different elements that people pulled out of the books or made up or didn't. Yeah. It seems like even Kenneth Branagh was he was not the first director that was attached to it, but they hired him in 2015, and they were they had trouble because Harvey Weinstein was a producer for a while, and then he was removed from the film because he's trash and disgusting and a criminal. And there's just I think it was one of those movies that probably had its fair share of behind-the-scenes mix-ups, but also I don't think anyone really cared that much about it. And I could be wrong about it.
I think it's one of those pot-committed movies. I think it's like a studio says, we've already invested $78 million into developing this. We're going to spend another 120 just to make it, because otherwise it's embarrassing for us.
And there's part of me that wonders if Kenneth, who released Murder on the Orient Express? Because it feels like one of those things where it's or who produced, what company produced it? Because I don't think that was a Disney film, but it does feel like it was I'll do this Artemis Fowl garbage, and then you'll let me play Hercule Poirot on a train.
One for me, one for you.
Not knowing that would be the hit of the two.
That could be it, or it could just be he obviously has some experience with big budget tentpoles like Thor. And I guess he probably looked at this at one point and said, hey, if I'm given freedom, it's a popular book, it's an interesting world, I could probably do something with it. But it seems like either he made a misstep or 20 different studio execs stepped in with scissors and went, oh, God, we don't even know what to do with this.
Yeah. Well,
so Murder on the Orient Express turns out it was 20th Century Fox, so it's not the same studio yet.
With our moderate-sized audience out there, there's a slim chance someone worked on Artemis Fowl. If you have any hot goss, you can send it to us, and we won't release your name.
Yeah, we'll do a mini-sode that's called the Goss House, where we talk about that hot goss.
Fowl House.
Mm-hmm. I'll play my character that everyone's knows very well, Ryan Gosling. He's the man made out of gossip, and he just loves to sing. I'm Ryan Gosling, and I love to sing about things that happen to people who aren't me. What's the gossip? Ryan Gosling here. Hey, everybody, what do you hear? I rhymed here with here, but they're spelled differently, so that's okay. Ryan Gosling. So that's my character everybody knows and loves.
Yeah, I love it.
My guess is this was not
it's great because also I remember when your character Ryan Gosling got hired to do promotion for Gosling's Dark Rum with Dark and Stormies, right?
Mm-hmm, exactly. It's hey, what's the gossip that everybody hears? I'll tell you what it is. It's Dark and Stormies, everybody's favorite drink right now. Hey, what's the news? Well, it's not really news. It's gossip. So I won't tell you who it's happening to except for one or two of the names, maybe. And I don't know if it's true or not. Dark and Stormies. I guess you just define what gossip is sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes, yeah. You know.
Real
so
Patterson.
my guess is this was probably not a disaster behind the scenes like Cats, and was more just a lot of cooks in the kitchen, and in the end just trying to salvage something. But I don't know.
Okay,
have we gotten to the part where Judi Dench is inside a landing vehicle and the ramp goes down, and then she just says "top of the morning" to nobody?
Love it. I fucking
There
love
Just-
it.
are like
just
4
open
or 5
air.
moments
So,
in
of
this
course,
movie that make no sense in the context of the movie, but seem there because they needed a trailer moment, and that's one of them.
Yeah.
I like to think that there was a character that was supposed to be CGI'd and there for her to talk to. They just forgot.
So yeah, at this point, the fairies have frozen Fowl Manor with one of their like flying time freeze devices, which once again, as we've stated, it's such a powerful ability. It's like as soon as in Dishonored you unlock the ability to freeze time, it's like the game isn't even fun anymore because you can just like freeze time and murder everybody. Okay, so
And yet they mostly freeze time just to stand around.
they do a lot. Yeah, so it's like they're freezing themselves, you know.
And every now and then they'll be like, the time bubble's unstable, and a fairy will be just sucked away into nothingness, and you're like, what?
Yep,
That's
like
horrifying.
I guess Azathoth is eating him. So Artemis.
Wait, Stuart, is Azathoth the one who dances eternally to the sound of Mad Pipers at the
Yeah,
center
yeah,
of the universe?
it's the blind idiot god.
Okay.
So
My gosh, I just stumbled into a Lovecraft podcast.
try to stumble out if you can find the door.
Oh, it's non-Euclidean.
So Artemis and Dom, of course, they're surrounded. So what do? They put on some cool suits and then beat the shit out of some fairies with their own weapons.
Yeah.
Yup.
And in the meanwhile,
take that, magical creatures.
yep. And the fairies' weapons, as we've addressed, are basically like a lot of blasters. They end up stealing a bow and arrow that shoots a laser and shoots the time device, which makes the time device unstable. So we got a ticking clock, everybody. It looks like we're at kind of a stalemate situation. So Commander Root has to go inside Fowl Manor to negotiate with Artemis.
Dun, 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 dun,
Did I get everything?
Yeah, that's pretty good. I mean, I think
You made that sound dramatic.
yeah, you described it much better than the movie did, where it's just
Yeah.
them just firing flat blasters at each other.
I also believe, you can correct me if I'm wrong, Elliot, I believe that both Elliot and I were leaning away from the microphone to burp at that exact moment, too. So that might have delayed our response.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for clarifying. I'm glad you guys are drinking. You're burping from all the dark and stormies you're drinking.
I'm smoking,
Brought to you by Ryan Gosling.
Brought to you by Ryan Gosling. Gosling's gin, or is it rum? Yeah, it's rum. Anyway,
it's rum, yeah.
So Dan and I have a connection much like Elliot and E.T. in the movie E.T., where sometimes we do the same thing at a distance, whether it's kissing someone because we saw a kiss on TV, or freeing frogs because why not? Why should the frogs have to die when we could just look at pictures of frogs?
Wow, that would be funny if when Stuart drank an extra beer, that's when Elliot started singing. That would be hilarious.
Yep.
Usually what happens when I
Get an
start singing is
extra
Stuart gets up to get an extra beer.
Yep. And I pause extra long when my hand rests on the door of the refrigerator, and I'm like,
Still singing.
here we go again. Okay. Yeah. Like maybe this will make the podcast go faster.
Now, did you mention that Fowl has demanded the Aculus to let Holly go?
Yeah, so he makes his demands. Of course, Commander Root makes her demands in her tough voice. But it feels like they're at yet another stalemate, although, as I mentioned, the time device is breaking and we have a ticking clock. Meanwhile, the fairies have decided to
Meanwhile, Madison's learning not every problem can be settled by committee.
That's exactly right. Because
Also on Disney Plus, Hamilton.
I get that joke now. Huzzah! Thank you, Disney Plus.
The problem is they're fighting over where to put the U.S. Capitol. It isn't pretty.
you got some more history raps for me? No?
Well, that's when the Virginian Insight dinner and invite, a quid pro quo, I suppose so, and so forth.
Oh man, what a laugh. Okay, so this is when the fairies are going to need the best deep core
Harry
driller
Stamper.
on the planet Earth, so they can blow up an asteroid. I'm
It's a bit of
guessing.
an exaggeration. A bit of an exaggeration.
I rewatched that movie recently because, like, it's a fucking pandemic,
I
and
know.
sometimes I need to find the stupidest thing to watch.
Yeah,
And
you don't want to
like,
miss a thing.
when Billy Bob Thornton says, "Get me the world's best deep core driller," I'm like, "What the? Are there listings? What the fuck is this?"
Yeah.
Yeah, in Deep Core Magazine.
Yeah.
Not what Deep Core Magazine is about, Elliot.
It's a Forbes.
Elliot shouldn't have splurged on that subscription.
No, I didn't even look at the magazine first. And
You said splurge. I thought
Yep.
it was like a porno reference. That's funny.
So, of course, they decide to break
guys,
out.
what if there was a soda called Splurge and it was just really expensive?
Tastes exactly like Coke.
Okay, so now
So-
Opal, are we going to talk about why Opal Cowboy's motivation?
I have no idea. I don't have anything written down in my notes. Do you
So
know?
Opal tells
Does anyone
Artemis
know?
Fowl.
Who
she
knows?
Drawing
tells-
a blank.
She tells Artemis Fowl Sr., "I'm mad that humans reduced fairies to mere stories to frighten kids. I'm going to take over the world and eliminate humanity. Somehow the Oculus will help her do this. I don't know."
Well, again, this seems like one of those problems that could be solved also just by revealing that fairies exist, rather than taking over humanity.
Well, it brings me back to the old.
There are a couple of steps that have been skipped, is all I'm saying.
The old Zookeeper episode where the animals are like, "Oh yeah, we can talk, but we don't like freaking people out." And it's like, well, maybe you should talk because we'd probably eat you less if you did.
Right? The abuse that you could avoid if you just spoke.
Man, I mean, I feel like attendance at zoos would at least temporarily increase, right?
There'd be a short increase, and then of course people would get used to it.
Plus, it's like...
Although I guess
it's
that
like-
wouldn't mean they'd make more money or anything, right?
no, the animals before they could demand a cut, they could unionize possibly.
True, yeah. They could actually negotiate
That would be
at this point.
the depressing
But also-
version of that story. Is all pets can talk, and then Elliot's version is like after 5 years, everyone's just like, "Shut up! No one cares that."
Well, that's the thing. Like, also, like they're like, "Oh, it'll freak them out." Like, well, that's the thing that people will get over with time. That's one of those people who like is just too polite to like avoid massive discomfort and can't say anything.
There's a stand-up bit that I saw Paul F. Tompkins do years ago, where it was if they found a gorilla who could speak, how many times would you see it on TV before you get tired of it? And just him imitating a gorilla who is being interviewed and has run out of things to say and is very, it's very boring.
Okay,
Anyway, okay, so Stuart.
so we cut back to the...
More Paul F. Tompkins. That guy's hilarious.
Yeah, he's great. If only he was an Artemis Fowl, but he's not.
He would have been great. So we go back to the fairy prison where Mulch Diggums is being threatened by a group of goblins, and he listens to Foreigner, and then he blows up the goblins, and right then they break him out and release him so that he can break into Fowl Manor and help rescue Holly.
And now, how does he break in? Tell us about the physics of how this works.
Oh, God.
Yeah, so this is where he straps on some goggles. He pulls out his mouth real wide, and then he starts digging a hole using his mouth, and then all of the dirt he consumes just flies out of his asshole.
Okay, I was wondering whether I was hallucinating that. That is what is intended, correct? That
Yes.
looks like he's
Yes.
just shitting a bunch
Yeah,
of...
if you go, I mean, if
This
you go
bit-
frame by frame, you can see his actual butthole. I
You
think.
can see,
This
you can see
bit
his, you can
wouldn't
see his
work
anus
in a
just
great
ejecting
movie.
it. Yeah.
I'm sorry, Ellie. I've talked about it.
sorry.
I
No,
just said this.
say what
I
you said.
just saying this bit wouldn't work in a good movie, and in a bad movie, your jaw hits the freaking floor.
Here's the thing that really got to me about it is you see his boxer shorts, so he must have like a slit in the back of his underpants that allows the dirt to come out.
Yeah.
So do dwarves have to turn their boxer shorts around so that the slit's in the back instead of the front?
I guess so. Or it's like those split pants that little kids wear in some Asian countries that they can just poop
His
whenever they need to.
his
before they
colon
ovulate.
health must be amazing, though, because that's a lot of fiber.
That is I don't know that there's that much fiber in dirt. Is there?
I mean, well, it's like sandblasting the insides of your colon.
Yeah, sounds very healthy. So he that was the moment where I was like, come on, movie. Come on.
And I was like, at least in Perdido Street Station, the bug people eat paste and it squirts out the back of their head, not out the back of their butt. That's weird. Okay, so he digs
this is
in.
when Artemis Fowl releases Holly from her jail cell for some reason. Oh no, they didn't yet. He's just and they're bonding over dads. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like, this is like I don't know if this is a very common thing in YA literature, but it feels like every single character their importance is in part defined by who their parents are, which is so depressing to me.
Open your eyes, Stu. Welcome to the world we live
It's
in.
one of
Yeah,
those. It's
such
one
a
of those
bummer.
things. The young adult books and movies are so intrinsically connected to that it's so frustrating. Is that prophecy is not good drama. It's just, I mean, it's not. Like, when you say someone is the chosen one, we're all sitting there going, all right, well, he's going to go, or she's going to go through a lot of trouble and then be named the chosen one, because that's what you told me. I'd much rather it just be like a kid trying to accomplish some things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And not being defined exclusively by their birth.
Yeah, maybe it has to do with the fact that like these are books for a younger audience, and their life experience is mostly defined by like their family and school. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's why there's a lot of YA where it's like, it's a school for this kind of talented thing. There's not a lot of YA that's about like having a job or like, or having children,
So Elliot, you're arguing...
You don't think Singles is a young adult movie?
I mean, as someone my age, those are now young adults, unfortunately.
So Elliot, your argument makes a lot of sense that for some reason this book or movie is not targeted to me, Stuart?
I mean, in a way, a movie about a criminal mastermind who operates in a fantasy world with elves and goblins does feel like it's targeted to
That's the thing. Okay, so where's my notes? Okay, so yeah, he's let Holly loose. She punches him in the face, and I'm like, I've been wanting to do that the whole movie, but I keep breaking my television.
I feel so bad not liking a child performer in a movie because he's just a kid, and they told him play this part like you're a smug dick, but it really is. I just felt bad the whole movie because I was like, I hate this kid. Oh, but he's just an actor. He's
I'm not mad at the actor. I'm mad at the character. I can differentiate those two things, Elliot.
I can't. I can't.
Yeah.
That's why when I watch the Golden Girls, I'm like, I gotta go visit these ladies. They seem like they're a lot of fun.
Yep, and you just drive around Florida looking for their home?
Well, just drive around yelling out the window, Blanche, Rose, Sophia,
Yeah,
Dorothy.
occasionally you get a bite, but it's just never the right
Never,
one.
mosquito
never understood
bite.
why they were called the Golden Girls, and you never went outside and tan.
That's a good point. They could have meant two things.
Hey, look, it's like Twitter. I try out a bunch of jokes. Some land, some flop. What are you gonna do? You know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Dan's familiar with that. So.
Whoa.
So
Sorry,
Mulch
I
is in
just
the
sneaking
house.
a burn. So yeah, Mulch is in the house. He finds, despite
it's gonna be the name of the sequel, Artemis Fowl 2. Mulch is in the house.
So Mulch's mission was to rescue Holly, but he used this as an opportunity to rob from the Fowl Manor.
That's the other thing is we forgot to mention is dwarves in this world love shiny things. They're always pickpocketing and con manning and that kind of stuff. Even a dwarfus giganticus, as Josh Gad calls himself.
Which plays into some of the troubling racial connotations that have long been associated with dwarfs. So he finds a safe.
You mean mythic Jews?
Yeah.
How they're kind of short and hairy and apparently love gold, but it's okay because he called them dwarves and they live in a mountain.
So he finds the safe. He opens it up. He uses his beard and mustache to open up the safe like you expect he would. And inside that safe is, of course, the Aculus. It was in the house the entire time. Why would he have left his house? The Aculus is there. It's great.
This is the most infuriating thing. Because, like, in a movie where, like, he starts out in the mansion, goes on a lot of adventures outside of the mansion, him discovering it was back at the mansion the whole time might be, like, clever or ironic or something interesting about it. But this is just a movie where they're like, ugh, I guess there's no other places in the world other than this mansion, huh? So they gotta hide it in the mansion.
Yeah, it's like if an executive got into Mad Max Fury Road and was like, why did they drive away? They're just gonna come back. Let's just have them stay there.
Stay there the whole time. What was Mulch's mission? He was supposed to go in the house
and rescue Holly.
Okay, because he doesn't do that. He just immediately is their friend.
And Artemis knew this was going to happen. He knew that that when Mulch got in the house, he would fail his greed check, and he would be forced to break into the safe.
Is that the case? Because there's a bunch of I guess because
he says that's all my plan, and he puts on his fucking sunglasses.
It's all he never explains his plan or relates his plan. He just every time anything happens, he goes, "It's all going to plan."
That's how you make people think you're a fucking genius, dude.
I was gonna say I got to start just doing that in my life.
Well, it's the same thing that's happened. That happened. I feel like for the past almost 4 years in politics, where the government will do something totally stupid, and someone will go like, It's all according to plan. You'll see three-dimensional chess. He's playing a very complicated game, and then things will get worse. Just you watch. Now we played into his hands. Oh boy.
Speaking of foul.
These clowns in Congress. Okay, so
he finds the Aculus, and he doesn't swallow it till later, right?
So yeah,
Spoiler.
right around now is when we have a little bit of dissension in the fairy camp. That's right. The character who I just have listed as Bootlicker takes control of Root's army.
That's Cudgeon.
Pudgeon?
Cudgeon. Yeah, like imagine Vanessa Hudgens, but her last name was Cudgeon, and her first name was not Vanessa, and she's not the Vanessa Hudgens you know, but in fact a sort of bootlicker evil fairy.
Okay, so he kicks Judi Dench out and decides to attack the manor. Everybody kind of goes along with it. I think they just want to see a troll in action. So they attack the house with a troll. There's what precedes is a troll fight that, gun to my head, I would say just as good as the Mines of Moria. Right around now, Juliet shows up again, but if the gun was not there, I would not say that.
I mean, gun to your head, you'd say pretty much anything about this troll fight.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, I need to live.
Gun to head, this is a brilliant movie.
Yeah.
I mean,
So there's the troll fight is a lot of running around the house and things getting smashed. So if you like watching furniture getting broken, you're going to see a lot of that.
I mean, to be fair, that's probably accurate to a troll fight if one happened.
not to kink shame anybody. If you're aroused by watching furniture get broken, get ready to explode with pleasure, because so much furniture gets broken. And I'm just gonna say this: Artemis is useless in this scene. At one point, he's got Holly's laser in his hands, and the laser sparks, and he drops it, and I don't know why that happened.
Yeah.
and then she gets stuck in the chandelier for the whole bit. I'm like, why?
Yeah,
what is that all about?
she gets stuck in a very elaborate chandelier.
Oy, oy, oy.
But this is one of the few occasions where you catch another glimpse of Butler's niece too.
Yeah,
like,
Juliet.
she's
Yeah, she
suddenly
shows up.
back in the movie.
Well, maybe
Mainly she shows up to
like
like scream and run around though.
Yeah.
But what happens with
After
this troll?
after a while, they beat the troll, but in the process, it falls on top of Dom the butler, and you're like, oh no, he's dying. So they like take him into another room, and Holly's like, I can't use my magic because the fairies put a thing on that prevents me from using magic. So I guess this dude's gonna die.
So many hastily delivered rules. This just came up. I just learned that I just cast a spell that won't allow us to undo the. And it just like you just came up with this now. Okay, movie.
Yeah.
And Dom, if I was a movie doctor, I would diagnose him with movie injury, which is where from the outside he looks fine. Except that he's very sweaty and he's having a little trouble breathing. There's no blood. There don't appear to be any broken bones. He's just had, I guess that when the troll landed on him, it smashed his life bar and all the life energy juice leaked out.
Yeah.
And so he's just got like
He lost
1%
his will to
maybe left.
live. You know how that
The
works.
Medibot. If the Medibot showed up, that's what the Medibot would tell the Jedi.
They got to take away that Medibot's license to practice.
Yeah.
She just keeps writing "lost will to live" on all of her documents, and it's like
Gonna
it was
be
clearly
a
foul play here.
scandalous expose about that Medbot in 20 years. Like 34,000 people just lost their will to live.
Oh, got your medical license from online classes at Bespin University. Okay, sure. Okay, so around and then Judi Dench takes over again, and she's like, "No, let him use the magic." And they're like, "Okay, let her use the magic." So then she brings Dom back to life, and I'm like, I barely had time to mourn him. Now he's back. I don't know how to feel. So he comes back to life.
What happened to Bootleg?
Do they throw him into a phantom dimension? I don't remember.
He just kind of stops. He just kind of stops when she says, "This is my arm," and he just kind of stops existing and is no longer. It's like how in old He-Man cartoons where He-Man would defeat a foe by throwing him off camera, and he was just not a problem anymore.
No longer near me.
That's great. So now this is where things get a little bit murky in my notes.
Yeah, here is where it gets murky.
Okay, so
You did great, Stuart.
Thank
Better
you.
than
No, Stuart,
I
you're
ever expected
You're doing
anyone.
fantastic.
No, dude,
and
this
I
is
can't believe
this is
amazing.
like this
I
is
feel like
when
Stuart is in
I
labor right now, and we're like, "Stu, you're doing great. You can get to the end of this. I can see the head."
I'm not kidding. I am legitimately impressed that you have this many bullet points and they're all accurate. Mine
This
would have been
is-
half this length.
This summary feels a lot like when I tried to drink an entire gallon of chocolate milk in an hour, and I drank so much of it, guys. I was like, there's just a little bit left, and I'm like on my knees in front of some car's headlights, and somebody's filming me, and they're like, he's going to barf, and I'm like, no, I'm going to finish it. But I was never able to finish it. And then eventually, eventually I barfed, and I got to tell you, most pleasurable thing in my entire life. It was amazing.
That's a situation I'm sure we can all relate to. Yeah.
That's why I told that story.
In front of a car, videotape chocolate milk prank.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a prank unless the prank is something I played on myself.
I've got a lot of questions, but I don't want to shame Stuart, so I think we should just move on.
Okay, are you, the shame is that I wasn't able to finish it? It's really hard to do.
I just don't know. No, they're most
Dan,
questions
he's
about
lived with that
why
shame
you
every
would do
day
such
of his
a
The
life.
shame
Let's
is that I
let
wish
go.
I had some chocolate milk right now, and you wasted so much.
Yeah, that's true. I did waste. I mean, not so much. I mean, I guess I barfed it out, and it was still cold. Okay, so right around, so the time bubble collapses. Okay, and the fairies run for it, but a lot of them get sucked up into the time vortex. To where they go, I don't know. Maybe they're like the prisoner of London. What's that guy who's stuck in time and keeps bouncing around? Okay,
but he can't leave the city. Yeah, sure.
He can't leave the city. I mean, haven't we all been there?
It's like Dark City, right?
It's a lot like Dark City, except they don't have quite the same level of cool outfits.
Or quick change.
So our heroes end up with the Aculus, which had been stored in Mulch Diggum's tummy. And they read a poem, and then the Aculus opens, and then somewhere in here, Artemis Senior shows back up.
Okay, so let me lay some knowledge on you about what's happening here.
Thanks.
Okay, the time bubble collapses, everyone's flying around, but everyone's fine. Holly has to save Mulch, who is also suddenly outside and flying around for some reason. Artemis gets the Aculus out of Mulch's tummy. We have to assume that he pooped it out, I assume, or that they cut him open and pulled it out, but he's fine, so probably they just waited for him to poop it out. And Holly stayed behind when all the other fairies left so that she would help him, and he can't, so everyone just kind of knows that the Aculus has the magic power to free his dad and bring him back to the house, but humans can't use the Aculus. It's too powerful. It would kill a human. Holly has to use it, and she does a thing that causes a magic. And the Aculus opens up and spins around, and there's letters flying everywhere and kind of magical glows and so forth. And, they also declare, and Artemis Jr. says, if you help me get my dad back, I'll trade you the Aculus for my dad, and you can take it back to Haven City. They declare themselves to be friends forever, because why wouldn't they be? He kidnapped her, they talked for a couple minutes, and
he blackmailed her.
And then he blackmailed her. And so Opal Cowboy is like, oh, the time limit is up. I'm going to kill you. But then Holly uses the magic to do, as my notes right here, something, ? And they're like, we did it. Okay, what happened? Like, nothing seems to be different. Artemis Jr. runs around this amazing house looking for his dad. The movie briefly becomes like a House Hunters, where we just get to see where all these... I see. The kitchen comes off of the family room. But guess who's back in the basement?
Property Brothers.
The Pro Bros are there, and they're like, you could knock down all these walls, but you don't get to keep the furniture. Who's there is Artemis Senior. That's right, the Aculus magic worked, and it brought Artemis Senior back. And Opal Cowboy is so mad that she almost tells us something about why this movie happened, or why this character exists, or what they're doing, but doesn't. And the dad is like, hey, Holly Short, your dad Beechwood Short was a hero when he took the Aculus away from Haven City. Now you need to take it back. This was all part of a big plot to investigate and take down those who are supporting Opal Cowboy. That's right, guys. Turns out he was never really impeached. It was all part of his plan to take down the deep state from the inside and stop their child trafficking ring in the pizza parlors.
That's like 4-dimensional chess.
Exactly.
It's political?
So the whole time, Artemis Sr. was not a thief, or maybe he was, but the whole thing was him getting kidnapped so that the Aculus could be found in his house, so that the fairies would attack his house. It was a ruse. I guess it was all a ruse to get Cudgeon out in the open, so that they could then stop, even though he was in jail before, and now they can go, they have a list of names that Beechwood short gave to Artemis Senior, and those were all the names of the people who were working with Opal Cowboy. And the names are written on a piece of paper that's cut in a kind of like fortune-telling device way, like that teenage girls make, where you fold it and then you got to pick numbers and you lift up a flap and it tells you what's going to happen in the future to you.
I picked 7.
Okay, and what did it say underneath?
It said I'm gonna have a boyfriend.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah,
but your boyfriend is
congratulations.
Artemis Fowl,
It's
unfortunately.
gonna take me to prom.
Oh, okay. Wow,
And
that's
so,
a big deal. That's a
Holly-
commitment.
And Holly takes the Aculus back to Magic Town, and Root names her the head of the investigation into the Opal Cowboy gang to see who else is in the Haven City Deep State. And that's when Artemis calls Opal and is like, "Hey, we're coming after you. I'm a criminal mastermind." Has he committed any crimes? I guess he kidnapped and
don't
imprisoned
know.
Holly.
And
Yeah.
this
But
is
she
his
was also
That's
origin
not really a
story.
human crime.
We thought he was
And-
a criminal mastermind at all this time, but this is how he became one.
I guess so, but then also, if Holly's dad was a hero for taking the Aculus out of the city and hiding it, why is her job then to take it back to the city? And what anyway? But what's important is what's going to happen to Mulch. Stu, what happens to Mulch? Diggums.
Mulch Diggums, let's see. Well, he's in jail, right? And he...
Yep.
So-
Human jail.
But the thing is, they think he's the thief, but I think he has a story about somebody else who's actually the thief. So he starts telling a story about a very smart little boy named Artemis Fowl. Now, Artemis Fowl was growing up, and his dad wasn't there all the time, but his dad was teaching him stuff
Oh,
about
no.
Irish
Stuart,
magic.
Stuart, I think you may have lapped yourself.
Now,
Meanwhile,
Hey.
Madison was learning not every problem can be settled by committee. So Mulch is being interrogated, and he's like, Artemis planned for all this. They're like, tell us where Artemis Fowl is, and I don't even know why the British government wants to know where Artemis Fowl is. Like, they're like, he stole the Rosetta Stone, and he stole this other stuff, and it's like, really? Because we didn't see it at his house in his secret basement.
Yeah.
But he goes, here's what we're gonna do. You're gonna leave us alone, and we're gonna keep the fairies from leaking into the real world, because we planned all this. And then Artemis Fowl's Jr. and Sr. fly a helicopter over the prison, and they just open up the ceiling hatch, and he climbs out, and he escapes. And the whole gang is back together and on the case again. And you're like, what? Like,
Yeah, I want to tell the listeners who may be baffled that listening to this podcast is actually quite like the experience of watching the movie, except for hopefully this was pleasurable, in that, like this podcast, it was mostly just a cavalcade of dumb fantasy names with then like a bunch of silly stuff thrown in that derails everything. And at the end, everyone kind of seems to lose interest with what's going on.
Yep. That's
Yeah.
how I would describe this movie,
Yeah.
and I would like to apologize to any of your listeners if I have spoken over your beloved trio or jeopardized their
please
banter,
do.
which is what I listen for. I don't listen for those stupid guests unless it's Hallie Hagley. Then I'm
Wow.
wow.
But I sometimes talk too much, and I hope I didn't speak over your hosts too frequently.
Scott, you were great. You kept us on track and angry.
I mean, usually
I am legitimately
we,
impressed by Stuart. I mean, any one of you guys did it would have been fine, obviously, but I am legitimately impressed.
Dan
that
wouldn't have done
anybody
a good
can
job.
Yeah, that's true.
that anybody can articulate anything.
It's a
about
fantasy
plot.
movie. Dan couldn't do it.
I mean, the fact that Dan couldn't sit through an hour and a half movie without getting up and doing something else at some point.
Okay, I feel like usually we save each of our like performance reviews till after the show.
Do we? So here's the question I have for you guys before we get to final judgments. Let's say you had your very own Aculus and you found out your dad was a super magic spy. What would you do? You think you're so much better than Artemis Fowl, the boy hero who never leaves his house.
I don't know what an Aculus is still, so I
It's
don't
a
know.
big metal magic acorn. What more do you need to know?
But what does it do?
Does it grant
If
wishes?
I had this kind of money and this kind of I wouldn't even let these people in my front door. This would never affect me at all. I'd be like some weird fairy people just knocked on my door and I didn't let them in. End of movie.
He's an antiques dealer.
Yes, that's his cover story.
So he has all that money because he steals stuff?
I think, well, it's family money. They've lived there for centuries, we're told.
Oh, great. Yeah, that's cool.
He steals stuff, but I don't know I don't know how you sell the Rosetta Stone on the on the criminal market. Like, I don't know how you fence, like, a
Literally
famous artifact.
priceless, right?
Yeah.
Let's do final judgments. I think we all know where we're going to go, but just
I'll just say, so for the record, none of us have a better idea what to do than Artemis Fowl did. Okay, fair. I'm glad we spent all this time criticizing if we didn't have any better ideas.
Let's tie things up by saying whether we thought it was a good, bad movie, a bad movie, or a movie you kind of liked. I will start by saying, look, I want to make it clear, first off, that this is all a criticism of the movie Artemis Fowl. I have no familiarity with the source material by Ian Colfer. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. But I did read his book that finished the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy books after Douglas Adams died and left everything on a sad note. And he wrote, what? You're not aware of this? He wrote a sixth Hitchhiker's book. Mostly harmless, of course, ends with a legendarily sour ending.
I don't know about that. It ends with all of the universe being revealed as a huge joke on us.
Yeah. Well, anyway, Douglas Adams always said that he was having a bad time when he wrote that. He had hopes to write a final Hitchhiker's book that was a little less sad. And then, of course, he unfortunately passed away. So the people who own the estate or whatever got Ian Colfer to write a sixth book, and it's a reasonably pleasing pastiche of Douglas Adams.
Yeah.
Like,
how would you compare it to Brandon Sanderson's conclusion of the Wheel of Time series, Dan?
I don't have the information, the data to make that kind of an evaluation.
How would you compare it to Stuart Wellington's forthcoming in the future conclusion to the Game of Thrones Song of Ice and Fire series?
Yeah.
Stu's obviously surpasses the master.
Mm-hmm.
Stu, Dan, I would
called...
like to know how you would compare that book to the classic book I just read last week, Horse Meets Dog, by Elliot Kalan.
Thank you.
I thought that the characters were a little thin in Horse Meets Dog.
Wow.
I mean, all I really learned about them is one of them is a horse and one of them is a dog.
What more do you need to
Sir,
know? Hey.
I don't think we read the same book, sir. While I reclined at the Hinterlands Bar in Brooklyn, New York, and watched The Daily Show on television. Sir.
Wow.
Dropping
the
hot
three-peat
plugs.
sponsorship. I will mention that Stuart's final Game of Thrones book is, of course, called A Game of Ghoulies, and all the characters get it in the end.
All
the Game of Jeff
Ghoulies now.
Galoolies.
Do you think the fans are looking for more descriptions of food, right?
Yeah,
Only
that's what
two
they
kinds
want.
of food: trenchers of gravy and
Wait,
capons.
you serve food at the
Lemon
Hinterlands
cakes?
Bar in Brooklyn?
Yeah, of course I do.
What's on the menu?
Well, lemon cakes, capons,
Love them.
trenchers.
trenchers, a little bit of revenge, but that's served cold.
Oh, snap! Better not wrong him.
So, Dan, you were going to finish your final judgment?
I just quickly wanted to say, look, I have no familiarity with the source material, which a lot of people love. So I can only assume that this is just a historic botch of a good story. But this movie, I think one of the main problems with this movie, despite along with everything about the movie, is that it thinks that we really care the most about action in fantasy action movies. Like, that is the thing that we come to these movies for, because it basically cuts everything else. And Kenneth Branagh directed a Marvel movie, one of the, I would say, most fine of the Marvel movies. But the MCU films are, big fantasy movies, essentially, where the action is okay most of the time. Some of them have really good action sequence, but mostly. But they overcome that, and the reason that they're so beloved is they spend a lot of time on the characters. You know who these people are. You're amused by them. You like to see them interact with one another. And this movie gives you the barest introduction to the title character, other than seeing that he's a little shit, and then throws you into a whirligig of CGI, and it has none of the charming moments that you look for in this. So it was like, other than movies that I find morally reprehensible, this is one of my least favorite movies we ever watched for the Flophouse. The end.
Nice.
Good bad movie?
Yes.
I would call this a bad movie. It is a movie that has a lack of, for lack of a better word, a lack of magic.
Yeah.
Oh, wow,
Blam.
smoking.
That is scorched earth. Yep.
So when I saw the early production, well, not early, but when I saw photos of this movie with Josh Gad dressed up like one of the members of Norwegian space Viking metal band Arcturus, I was like, ooh, I'm up for this. I was roundly disappointed. There is no space Vikings. It is, this is not fun. It's at, 87? How long is this movie? 80
It's
minutes?
96 minutes long.
That is 90 minutes too long.
Yeah. It is the longest 96-minute movie I've ever seen.
Bad
Only
movie.
because you have no idea what's going on. It's like when
Yeah.
you know where you're going and you end it on a 4-hour drive, or you don't know where you're going on a 1-hour drive. The 1-hour drive feels much longer because you're like, oh, okay, I don't know. Or like there are times when I would get stuck on a subway train in New York that would stop in mid-tunnel, and I'd be like, okay, I guess I live here now. I'm never getting off this train. That's what this movie feels like a little bit.
Well, I am going to break the bad streak and say good bad only because this movie got me onto the Flophouse. That's a lie. This movie's bad.
Oh, that's sweet.
This movie, I love fantasy. I certainly have no problem with getting behind young adult movies, even so-so ones. You know, there's lots of times you see mediocre, big-budget movies where you give it a little more charity than it deserves because, you know, people worked on it and it's a piece of art, so maybe it's not perfect, but and then you're halfway through this and you're like, why am I being charitable to this? It doesn't deserve any charity. Obviously, the crafts people, the people who built the sets and the actors and the people who fed everybody and the lighters and those people did their job, but the powers that be did not care about this movie. The end product shows that, and it is a terrible, terrible, bad movie.
Yeah.
All right, well.
Bad bads. Now, speaking of things that aren't bad, I'm going to talk a little bit about the Max Fun Drive.
Oh.
And to do that, I am going to pull up some stuff. So, before the drive, months and months ago, before COVID and et cetera, Max Fun sent out an email to all of the Max Fun subscribers to ask a couple of questions, kind of what kind of roles Max Fun can fill for people in times like these. And they sent along a list of these responses to us, and reading through these before the show, to be honest, I found it pretty moving to read people's thoughts about what Max Fun provides for them in times when there's so much chaos. One of the lines that kind of stuck out to me from, oh man, let me mess this up, from Caton from Portland, Oregon, said, "Stay safe. It's nice to be in the new abnormal with you together, though." And that kind of highlights the idea of how strange and everything seems, and how the universe kind of feels so uncertain, at least for me. I mean, I run a small business, but doing the show and also listening to the shows in the network has provided me some kind of sense of stability and obviously friendship with my buddies Dan and Elliot, but also the extensive podcast friendship. Do you guys, what I'm going for, guys? The feeling of the feeling of community by listening to other people kind of going through the same thing, and also doing it on a regular routine. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I also want to take a moment to acknowledge, too, that obviously a lot of people are in bad spots right now, and some of us are better suited to weather the storm than others. I know I have it a lot better than others. But that being said, a lot of the money from this drive, goes to the network in general. It goes to people who podcasting may be their main job, and podcasting, like every other job, is getting hit hard by what's going on. So while this may seem silly, there are people who depend on the funding that you're able to provide.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's kind of the whole thing. We do the Max Fun Drive to kind of spotlight that the shows on Max Fun are primarily listener supported, and that's why I'm talking to you to consider, if you are in that kind of a position, And if you like our show and other shows on the network, you should consider becoming a subscriber. And the way you do that is by visiting MaximumFun.org/join. I can't tell the difference between those things. And that'll give you a list of all the different ways you can give. I think the vast majority of subscribers to Max Fun give at either the $5 or $10 per month level. But some have, there's options all the way up to $20 a month or more. Whatever you can provide, obviously, we're grateful for. And even if you can't, we understand that too. And part of the incentive and part of the bonus is that there's different gifts that are available to people who donate at all levels, whether it's bonus content, which we have been putting out quite a bit of bonus content the last couple of years when I force you guys to play role-playing games with me, and I make my friend Alex write music and do cool sound effects for.
An ever-expanding universe of bonus content that seems to take more and more of our time every year.
Yeah, but when we do it, you guys say it's just fun to get together, and you like having an excuse to hang out with your friends.
Oh, yeah,
That's
yeah,
what you-
sure,
that's
yeah,
what you
of course,
say.
yeah, of course, yeah.
One gift in particular that speaks directly to my heart and soul, of course, is the Max Fun Game Pack. That provides a set of Max Fun branded dice in a velvet bag with a rocket logo. That's the Max Fun rocket logo. So if you need to show off and go to your next game night, you can bring that velvet bag and pull out those Max Fun dice. As well, it also comes with a deck of custom Max Fun inspired playing cards. So if you and the street urchin that you are fostering need to hustle some rubes out on the street, you can use that deck of cards and do some 3-card mounting. And
3-card Mountie. It's like 3-card Mountie, but with Canadian Mounties.
3-card Mountie with Canadian dollars. So once again, I love the network. I love being part of the network. I've made some really good friends doing the show, and even the hosts that I don't know personally all feel kind of like friends to me. And so thank you for listening, and thank you for donating or subscribing.
That was really sweet and lovely.
As a guest, I will just interject. As a longtime film writer and film fanatic, I am an avid listener of not only The Flophouse, but also Friendly Fire and Switchblade Sisters, both of which are
so great.
are alliterative and are podcasts on this fine network. And it's also where I found and enjoyed iPodius, I believe it's pronounced. iPodius.
Close enough.
No,
Close
I did.
enough.
I actually watched every episode and then listened to each episode in succession like a nerd and had a ball. iPodius was a blast.
That's
Thank you.
that's the show you're dropping our show to do, right, Elliot?
Well, I mean, it's finished. I mean, we did it. There's no. I mean, maybe we'll watch I Claudius through again and do another episode. But
That sounds like the best idea of all time.
If anybody out there wants a fun project, get the old PBS series iPodius, watch episode 1, then listen to episode 1 with a little marijuana in between, and then do the same for episodes 2, 3, all the way to the end. And then when you're done, thank Elliot and his co-host John Hodgman.
Thanks. Yeah. Thank you for that plug for my own thing.
Oh, I had a ball. I think you should do a bonus episode for Caligula, though. If I could just interject that, I think
I don't want to watch that again.
Let's do a quick ad or two, actually. The Flophouse is sponsored in part by HelloFresh. Get fresh, pre-measured ingredients and mouth-watering seasonal recipes delivered right to your door with HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit. There's something for everyone, including low-calorie, vegetarian, and family-friendly recipes every week. HelloFresh's pre-proportioned ingredients mean there's less prep for you and less food waste. And HelloFresh donated over 2.5 million meals to charity in 2019, and this year is stepping up their food donations amid the coronavirus crisis. We got some HelloFresh samples some ways back, and I recall that I asked for the lower calorie stuff, and it tasted as delicious as it would have had it been packed with calories.
Well, you added extra butter, right?
I did. I mean, that's that's a true chef puts his own little spin on anything.
I mean,
he cooks.
not every chef just layers the lardo onto every piece
Well,
of food.
they're
they
missing
eat.
out. I mean, come on. That's how it goes. Go to HelloFresh.com/Flophouse80 and use code Flophouse80 to get a total of $80 off, including free shipping on your first box. Additional restrictions apply. Please visit HelloFresh.com for more details. That's HelloFresh.com/Flophouse80. That was a lot of words, guys.
I gotta give you credit. You know, for somebody whose mouth was clearly watering at those food descriptions, you read that very well, Dan.
I think
Well, thank
HelloFresh
you.
should team up with Hello Kitty.
I'm sure that's got
Hello
to be
Fresh
thrown
Kitty.
around.
They send only the freshest cats to your house. Yep. HelloFresh doesn't send you cats. HelloFresh sends you delicious meals that are already measured out. Because you know the worst part of cooking, the measuring. I hate it.
All right, moving on to a quick word from Squarespace. Use Squarespace to create a beautiful website. You can turn your cool idea into a new site where you blog or publish content, sell products and services of all kinds, and or more. The ever-present more. Squarespace does this by giving you beautiful, customizable templates created by world-class designers with everything optimized for mobile right out of the box, a new way to buy domains and choose from over 200 extensions, free and secure hosting. Wow. Wow, everyone. Wow. Head to squarespace.com/flop for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, use the offer code FLOP to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain.
Hey, Dan, that sounds great. I actually had an idea for a website, and I was wondering if Squarespace might be able to help me with it.
Well, just keep the idea short, since we did a lot of Max Fun stuff, too.
Okay, I just that watching this movie, it made me think about like what happens if you're tunneling through the dirt, chomping it down, it comes flying out of your butt, and you accidentally get some minerals in there that are a little bit harder to pass through. And that's why Rocktologist.com is your place on the internet for telehealth examinations. That's right, we can do it remotely to help you diagnose what kind of rock is stuck in your rectum, or roctum as we call it, and how to get that guy out of there. Because what's
good.
most important to us is your bowel health over at Rocktologist.com.
For a moment, I thought the service was just going to identify the type of rock. And like it seems like that would only be one step in a two-step process.
I mean,
but
that
I'm
is
glad.
the first most important step, because you want to treat different rocks differently.
I disagree with you, Elliot. I think the second step is the most important step.
It's hard to get to the second step without the first step.
All right, well. Stuart, I think you have a Jumbotron, and then we can move on.
Oh, we don't want to talk about rocks stuck in people's asses anymore? Okay.
I mean, we can. Rocktologist.com is here for you.
Cool, okay, I do have a Jumbotron. Okay, and it goes like this.
You said that as if we interrupted you, but we didn't.
Come on.
He's rolling.
And it goes like this. The Blue Room is a short film about a bored security guard who spends his days wandering the halls of a mysterious research facility. His only company is a sarcastic scientist who claims he can do magic. Equal parts Lynch and Lovecraft, The Blue Room combines the history of 19th century stage magic with creeping cosmic dread. It's a puzzle box with something terrifying inside. Open it, won't you? So visit blueroomhorrorfilm.com to watch the movie for free. Won't you?
Can't beat that price.
I might.
Sounds fun to
Hey,
Yes.
let's do letters
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
from
why not?
listeners.
me. Letter time. Hey, it's time for letters. Okay, let's do it.
Letters from whom?
Perfect. This is from...
Letters from the listeners who write us letters like you from listeners
That
like
makes
them.
sense.
This,
Yep.
Now, I know I said letters like you. Maybe you're not a letter.
Damn
Maybe
it.
you're a person who writes letters, but sometimes letters listen to, and they write letters too. It's how letters have babies. They write letters to
I
us.
meant to...
I'm going to need more
I'm-
information.
Well, you see, when a letter wants to start a family, they don't have to do it the human way or the animal way or even the amoeba way where they split in two. Instead, they write a new letter for you. It says, "Dear you, here's my letter to you. It's my baby. Take care of it, please. Love a letter. P.S. Please, Please, this letter is all that I have in the world to leave behind and let the future know that I was here. Treat it well, maybe laminate it. Thank you.
Okay.
I guess it was my fault for mentally praising Elliot for keeping it short the first time around.
That's a mistake.
He can hear my thoughts. We have that ET connection. Anyway, Willie last name withheld.
Loman.
Writes, Dearest Flappers, recently your episode with Felicia Day featured a quip from the aforementioned guest host about a movie being big in Topeka. As a group, you questioned whether or not it was large in East or West Topeka. You also wondered if one side of Topeka was better than the other side. I never lived in Topeka, but I was an editor for the Topeka Capital Journal for 6 months before they laid off half of their staff.
Oh, man.
Sorry to hear that.
I can assure you that there is no good side of Topeka. The west side is a very large Walmart next to a very large Sam's Club, next to, I'm assuming, a now-closed Chuck E. Cheese. And the east side is the Kansas state capital and a lot of crime. Topeka has this weird setup where all of the rich people live outside of Topeka, so they don't have to pay city taxes, which makes Topeka a terrible place to live. If you find yourself in Topeka, I recommend the following activities. 1. Spangles is a terrible local fast food chain that features 50 nostalgia steam and horribly bad food. It does, however, have a liquor license and sells margaritas and screwdrivers for like $1.
It's a nice price.
2, nothing else. Nothing else, just keep driving until you get to Lawrence or Kansas City or Manhattan on the other end. In conclusion, don't bother investing in a Rand McNally guide to Topeka. It will just tell you to do boring things like go to the governor's mansion or visit some museum
Dan?
I'm assuming they have.
Dan?
Keep on flopping the pre-roll Willie West.
I feel like this letter
Dan?
is
Dan?
a little uninformed.
Dan, Dan, before you get to the postscript of the letter, it might answer my question, but I want to ask it. Is Topeka named after that really lumpy pudding that people eat?
Tapioca, you mean?
Wait, what did I say?
Garbanzola?
Close enough.
I said Topeka,
No.
right?
Yeah. Now, it didn't answer my question, which is whether it's worth stopping at that Topeka bodega I've heard so much about in my acting classes.
But wait, it's called Topeka, right?
Yeah, tapioca is what you're thinking of.
I said that's what did I say?
It's the capital of my fridge.
Yeah.
Wait,
Sorry for...
the town is called Tapioca?
Oh boy. I will mention I've always wanted to go to Lawrence, Kansas. One of my good friends from college, John Ott, was from there, and he always made it sound really nice.
You know what's one city that I'm from and you guys have been to and I've seen you here? Philly. Represent what? Philly in the house. I don't remember. I can't remember what show it was, but I sat in front of one of your significant others, and I believe it was Stewart's.
Oh yeah. If she was asleep during the show, it was probably my wife.
Okay.
No, wait. So I got a question. Do they make the pudding
Yes,
there?
that's why it's named Tapioca.
That's why it's named.
I think we've got it. This is a common mistake that no one has ever made before, Stu. It's actually two different words.
And look, don't get mad at me, Topeka. As far as I know, you're lovely. Halfway through this letter, I couldn't stop laughing at the idea of how mad people in Topeka were, and I apologize for laughing at your pain.
Yeah, no. Dan's the social media platform. He's not a guardian. He believes all free speech should be free. He can't censor these things just because they may be slanderous. Look, Dan's not here to be a gatekeeper. Just because there might be inaccurate information about Topeka out there.
I love you, Topeka. This is
Strange way of
from
showing
Wade.
it, Dan.
Wait.
Strange way of showing
Wait,
it.
it's Tapioca?
This one's from Wade, last name withheld.
Wade
Who
Wilson,
writes?
Deadpool. Yeah.
Hey, floppers. Long-time listener, first-time mail question that doesn't sucker, I hope. Occasionally, a movie, rather than having an exceptionally memorable cast, story, characters, or any other prominent feature, is remembered for having an especially original or outrageous central conceit. The bad example of this would be a movie like...
Who wrote this?
What? The bad example of this... Well, Wade
Sorry,
did.
Wade.
Wow. See, I insulted
I'm
sort
not
of an
insulting.
abstract
The
idea of
grammar
a
is
city.
just-
Now you're insulting Wade.
Dan, it was not. Wait, let me just say, it's not an abstract idea of a city. Dan. It's a city. It's a physical city that people live in. I insulted
sorry,
both
Wade.
the city and the people who live there. It's not
I
like there's
didn't
some
insult the people at all.
platonic concept of Topeka that you went after.
I think that we brought attention to the shadiness of people who live in Topeka not paying the city taxes, the wealthy fleeing from Topeka.
Oh yeah, we're muckrakers. Yeah, we finally broke that story.
I think I'm going to be splashed with this anti-Topeka mud for the rest of my life, and I don't appreciate it, frankly.
Okay, so
So, guys, I hate
right,
to
this is-
interrupt, but it looks like when I Googled Tapioca, Kansas, the first result is top 10 best tapioca in Wichita, Kansas. So I don't think that's the name of the town, guys.
Fair
Oh,
enough.
I don't want to click on it. I think it'll mess up my algorithm.
oh god. Okay,
That's me with Amazon Prime. Like, do I want to watch this romantic comedy? No. Now it's going to offer me 45 romantic comedies.
Sure. I think you should. I mean, mix it up.
Yeah, come on.
Sorry,
Don't be
sorry,
afraid.
Wade.
poor Wade was excited about getting his question answered.
So Dan, so finish.
Okay.
So power through it, Dan.
Okay, it's about exceptionally memorable central conceits. The bad example of this would be a movie like Wanted, which basically no one remembers anything about at this point other than it's the movie where people can bend bullets. My favorite example of this would be a movie like Dread, where the movie invents the conceit of a drug that makes everything into super slow motion and feasts upon it sumptuously at every available turn. Can you think of some other movies, beneficial or baneful, that you recall having a central or tangential conceit that you consider particularly memorable? Keep flopping on, Wade. Now, which one of you is going to make the joke about the most baneful movie being The Dark Knight Rises? Anyone?
I was
Anyone
going
wanna
to say
bid on that?
7 because 7 has a great concept, and that's.
okay.
I mean, like, I think that's kind of what the question was asking, like whether the movie is good or not. And I think 7 is a masterpiece. But the concept of a killer, killing his victims through the 7 deadly sins is a fascinating and compelling concept. Plus, it's always raining. I love that.
Yeah. Yep.
I don't know if you guys have seen this movie called Alien, but it posits a universe where there's an alien that puts its egg inside your body and then it explodes out of your chest. And that's a pretty great concept.
Yeah, you got. I mean, like, it's sort of hard to say, like, what's a conceit, like, where the lines around like that is. But
The Purge. Anything that makes a writer say, "Damn, I wish I thought of that." The Purge. What's the hook? Crime is legal for one day, and every writer in the world went, "Damn, I wish I thought of that."
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good example of one where the movie does not live up to the conceit, too.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. Well,
Well, I was gonna
certainly
give-
the first one.
Yeah.
I was gonna give one like that off the top. Just looking over Flophouse movies, you got something like, I think it's Upside Down, where you have those two planets right next to one another, and it's like visually quite a nice looking movie in some ways because of that. But it's not a story. There's no, but like that conceit is pretty interesting. And then I don't know. I was trying to, like, these are just off kind of the top of my head, but one that came to me was Brick, where you were like, okay, what if like a hard-boiled detective story with like the elevated language even of such a story in a high school, and then something like It Follows, where it's like, okay, what if a death curse of some kind could be passed like a venereal disease, basically. And those are the two that I sort of thought of.
I'd say I think the first one that popped into my head was, and I don't know if I would say this is a central conceit, but it's something I liked in a movie, and that's in the movie Elysium, the Neil Blomkamp movie. I love that like Matt Damon and all those guys get the like things to like anchor a robo exoskeleton to their body, and they can walk around and be extra tough. I think that's great. The rest of the movie's not very good, but I like that part. I'd like to see that in a better movie.
What was that one with Jude Law, where Repo Man? There was one that had a pretty cool concept and
Yeah.
not so great of a follow through.
I certainly remember it not being a great follow-through, although I don't remember anything about the movie at all. Is that the one where you get, like, designer organs, and then Jude Law comes and cuts them out?
Yeah, and then if
Oh,
you don't
right.
pay, if you don't pay for them, they'll come
That's
take
or
'em.
like, did you guys mention In Time already?
Oh yeah,
Where it's
that's
like
a good one.
you get a certain amount of time and you can transfer time as a currency and you can stay young forever. And that's another one where it's like, oh, okay, there's something kind of that's an interesting way to like visualize in a concrete way income inequality and wealth inequality. But then it just kind of turns into like a robbery movie
Yeah.
or like a.
You know what I thought had a really good concept? That movie, The Adventures of Tan Tan.
Wait, Tan?
Yeah.
What about it?
I think that was fresh in my head because one of you gents reposted the animated version of that wonderful diatribe.
Oh,
that you guys
okay.
did. And I love those animations of not just your show, but when any shows that are.
Yeah.
I love those.
I feel like that's...
Who is the guy who
That
does
is-
those? Or girl who does those?
Tony Oker. I mean, that's his Namdu artist, I believe. I don't know if it's his real name, but he's great. He's been the unofficial and now sort of the official Flophouse animator for a long time. And this is, I guess, a good plug to go check out our YouTube channel where all those things live, in addition to the live show we did for charity. But anyway, moving on to the next segment of the show, which is recommendations. Stuart just put his hands back on with a big grin because he's thirsting to give a recommendation of
man,
a movie
I cannot
you should
wait.
watch instead of this. But I will go first because I'm already talking. And this movie that I am going to recommend
Glad that
is
you
one...
teased both the audience and
Yo,
Sue.
if this movie, I'll tell you, if this podcast was a movie, I would say that's a great line. I will go first because I'm already talking.
Don't want to stop the momentum. So I watched a movie called Lucky Grandma. I saw it. It's available from Alamo On Demand, but I assume it's available elsewhere as well.
I mean, it's a great title.
Lucky Grandma. It is about an elderly Chinese woman in Chinatown who her husband has passed away. She has children, but she's living alone rather than going to live with them. And she gets news that from a fortune teller that she's going to be very lucky. And she goes to the casino, wins a bunch of money. Things don't turn out so well eventually. She winds up taking some money that gets her in with some bad people. And it's sort of like... It's got some flavors of like maybe a Coen-y crime movie, like a crime comedy. But it's also very distinctly Chinese. And also like... Audrey is not Chinese, she is Filipino, but she did confirm for me that this movie plays very much on sort of a type of like a tough older Asian woman, fiercely independent. And I know that like from getting to know her family, I appreciated a lot more about this movie than I think I would have otherwise, which led me to read reviews from Chinese Americans who also like confirmed for me that there's like a lot in this movie that is very like culturally specific as well that you may or may not catch on to, but it makes it kind of a more special occurrence to see this type of story. And it was just like a lot of fun.
That sounds good.
Yeah. Stuart. Scott.
Yeah,
Go.
Scott.
Yeah, I'll get mine at it. I'll do mine real quick. I'm a huge horror fan, as I know a lot of people are, and I watch a lot of stuff on Shudder and Amazon Prime. Lately, I've been on a Korean kick, and I watched a period piece monster movie on Shudder called Monstrum from South Korea, and it is set in 1527, and it is basically a lot like The Host, Bong Joon-ho's masterpiece, combined with a 14th century political backstabbings and dealings, and it's got action, it's funny, it's got a great monster, and carnage galore. Monstrum.
That sounds good. I gotta check that out.
Yep. You'll like it.
I am going to recommend a movie that has recently been added to the Netflix streaming platform. I do...
Tell me more of this platform.
You drag the movie over into your player, and then you hit play, and it shows up in your eyeballs.
Your mailbox.
So I'm going to recommend a movie called Old Guard. It's great. It's a great action movie.
I'm so glad one of you guys picked it because I didn't want to pick the most obvious thing.
Now I do have to get out of the way that my buddy Alejandro, who is a friend of the show, is the editor on the for the comic. He's the editor for Greg Rucka, the writer of the comic and writer of the screenplay. So I'm a little bit biased, but I'm also a fan of the comic. I think it's great, and I feel like this adaptation really captures the spirit of the comic. It captures the spirit of the characters. It respects it, and at the same time, it is a badass, super fun action movie. Charlize is great. She is one of the defining action stars currently working today, and it's a blast. It's probably like the best action movie I have seen, like Netflix original action movie I've seen, but I could be wrong. But it's a lot of fun. Check it out, The Old Guard, or just Old Guard.
And I will finish out the recommendations. I wanted to recommend an independent film from 1996. It's currently, I saw it on the Canopy streaming platform, which you may have access to through your local public library. And it's called The Watermelon Woman. And it was written, directed, and stars Cheryl, it's either Dunye or Dunny, or I could not find how to pronounce her name online. I found several different ways to do it. But anyway, she plays a woman who works at a video store. She is black. She's also a lesbian, and she becomes obsessed with a background actress or a supporting actress in movies from the 1930s and 40s who is credited as the Watermelon Woman in her movies. She wants to find out who was this woman, what was her name, what is her history, and in doing so, kind of learns more about the community around her, learns more about people in the past who were dealing with some of the same issues of being gay and being black then that she is now. And at the same time, she is kind of starting to date and maybe fall in love with a white woman that she has met, and their relationship has to deal with the friction that comes with them coming from two different places and having two different ways of thinking about things. But it's like, there's some really funny parts, and I found that it was like, of all the movies I've ever seen that show fake archival photos and archival footage, this by far does the best job of creating kind of fake photos and fake footage and things like that looks like it was actually from the time it's supposed to look. And it's a very indie movie. There are times when you're watching it when you're like, oh yeah, this is what independent movies from the 1990s looked like. You know, it doesn't look like a slick, glossy movie. I'll warn you or entice you with the fact that there is a surprisingly graphic sex scene during the movie that I was not ready for. And I was like, this is much more intense than I expected.
You're like, get out of the room, Mom! Don't watch!
Sammy, when I started watching this independent film about someone investigating 1930s bit players, I didn't think this was going to be this inappropriate for you. But by the end of the movie, which is done in kind of like a half fake documentary, half just straightforward style, I found like the threads of it had just come together in this really fantastic way. And it was exciting to see a movie from 25 years ago that felt very, exciting and depressing. See a movie from 25 years ago that felt still very relevant to what's going on today. But there's one scene in particular that deals with disorganized archives that I thought was hilarious. So anyway, if you like archive humor, then The Watermelon Woman is the movie for you.
All right. I guess that is that for our regularly scheduled segments. But Elliot, I believe that you would like to say a few final words about the Max Fun Drive.
I would love to. You're going to be hearing a little bit more of the Max Fun Drive in future episodes. We won't be done with it for a little bit, so I won't take too much of your time. I will just say ahead of time, I want to thank everybody who has become a Max Fun member in the past and supported this podcast. I want to thank everybody who is thinking about it or going to, everybody who's planning to upgrade their membership. It really means a lot to us because it means that you are literally supporting us. This is the reason that we can keep making the time and putting the investment of energy and money and things like that into this show to make it what it is. Your support really means a lot to us. The fact that we've been doing this show for a long time, for over almost a decade and a half, and the show is a bunch of nonsense when you get down to it.
Yeah.
But that it means something to us, it means something to the people who listen to it, and it means something to you because you're willing to support it and give us, the space and the means to really make it happen. We make most of our money off of pledges. It's the vast majority, and this year even more so because we aren't touring. For obvious reasons, we're not selling merchandise on our tours because we're not touring. See the previous sentence. And so your pledge dollars mean even more to us. If you were attaching love to the money, then that love is even greater this time. And as said earlier, we know this is a hard time for a lot of people. It's obviously a hard time, and there's a lot of great things and what's the word I'm looking for? Causes. Thank you. Yeah. Causes. There's a lot of great causes that I know are also clamoring for your money. We are not asking for you to choose between saving the world and paying us. We are saying just pay us. The world will take care of itself.
Oh, wow. That did not go the way
that
that was going to go.
You jokerfied it.
Also, obviously, look into your hearts, look into your pockets, and see what you are comfortable with. But we really appreciate it. If you're not able to this time, we hope you consider it next time. But you'll hear more from us, and we just want to say thank you very much for making this something that we can continue to do for as long as we can. And again, that's MaximumFun.org/join, whether you are joining or upgrading your membership or just curious about the possibilities. If you're not doing that, then the least you can do is help us spread the word about the Flophouse. Tweet about us, Instagram about us, TikTok about us, Facebook about us.
We talked about YouTube a little bit ago. We have a semi-active YouTube channel where we have our recent virtual live show, as well as a collection of wonderful animated videos put together by Tony Oker.
We have our first ever actual promo that Tony animated for us, and it's like an actual real thing you can show people and be like, this is what the Flophouse is. And it only took us 13 years to get to the point where we were like, oh yeah, we should do that. So we would like to say thank you for helping us spread the word. Thanks for considering supporting us. Thank you to our editor, Jordan Cowling, for taking our usual ramblings and shortening them to only slightly longer than humans can tolerate.
Yep. And I want to say triple thanks to our guest, Scott Weinberg. It was so much fun to have you on, dude.
Thank you guys so much. I have been a fan of the show. I listen to a lot of podcasts, as Elliot mentioned. I do have my own show with my friend Stephen DeGennaro called Science versus Fiction, where we are film lovers, and Stephen is an astrophysicist, and we thought there's got to be a way to talk about real science in movies without being pedantic and obnoxious. So we're trying to do that and be fun. But what I was saying was I've been a big podcast listener for a long time, and I think what I like most about your show is that it can be critical, but it's never mean. I don't like mean. Even if a movie is bad, like Artemis Fowl, most of the people involved in that movie tried to do good work, and a lot of them did. We just don't see it because the final product ain't so hot. And I really respect that you guys are funny and irreverent, but you're never kicking down on filmmakers. And as a film critic and a filmmaker, I truly respect that. And so it just means a lot to me to be on the show for once. I really enjoyed it.
And
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. And I want to say that one of the things that I really like about your show is that it's clear that you guys are, in addition to being knowledgeable about film and science, you are also huge fans, that you clearly love the medium you're talking about. And that comes through.
And that you love it, and that when you guys don't agree on something, there's a respect there that means that you don't rip each other apart for disagreeing on something.
Unlike this show.
I was going to say, we are mean, but just to Dan. Dan's the only one that we're mean to.
Yeah. And I also have an older show that is now deceased, but it's still up, and people seem to like it, called 80s All Over, where my friend Drew McWeeny and I covered the first half of the 1980s, and it was a very maniacally busy, crazy, hectic show that it will not be coming back, but I really do hope that people love the episodes that we did. I have 2 more podcasts coming out in the next year. And I just want to thank all the other podcasters out there, all the creators on Max Fun and otherwise who inspire me to do good work.
Well,
right back at you. Right back at you. Oh yeah, and we did it. Yeah.
Yeah.
We did it. Time to pat ourselves on the back. It's going to have to be distance. So Dan, can you pat yourself on the back like I would pat you on the back?
How would you do it?
It's more of a rub. Less of a pat, more of a rub, right?
What are you wearing on your wrist?
I put some weights on my wrist because we're in quarantine, guys. I want to have some exercise, but I want to do it in the laziest possible way.
Yeah, no, I get it. That's awesome. Yeah, I'm glad that happened. Okay, cool. So what are we doing now? Are we going to say goodbye?
Now we say goodnight. For the Flophouse, I've been Dan McCoy.
I'm Stuart Wellington.
I'm Elliot Kalin, and thank you to...
I'm Scott Weinberg. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye!
Nice.
Second one? Want to do it again, Dan?
All right,
I got a second one?
Let's do it again.
Okay.
On this episode, we discuss Artemis Fowl.
The movie that dares to raise the question, what the fuck is going on in this movie?
Coming in
Which
hot.
And in very hot.
Hot. Ooh.
MaximumFun.org.
Comedy and culture.
Artist owned. Audience supported.